He's less problematic than Tenacity. I will grant this is an upgrade. I don't disagree with that, but I don't buy that Quid is an upgrade over Bjergsen.
Hello and welcome to The Dive, Season 7, Episode 12. That seems really weird. It's the first one of this split. I feel like we should just make this a...
Season 8, Episode 1.
Boom!
Dude, we're Attack on Titan now. It's Season 8, Part 1,
Yeah.
Split 2.
The final season, Version 4.
The final season to be continued. A bunch of stuff went down. Me and Isaac just got back from 11 days straight of MSI into 15-hour travel day, and we're gonna record some dive right now with some beautiful insights.
I feel like you guys keep saying that you just got back. I've been hearing that for 3 straight days. I heard it on Tuesday. I heard it on Wednesday.
You have not
Thursday
heard it
now.
for 3 straight days.
I've heard you guys say
we were in the
just
air.
Got back.
You saw us for the first time yesterday, Mark.
You said Monday that you got back.
He's
and now it was Slack. In Slack, you said
yeah, I
it
got
was
back Monday night.
Yeah, Monday night. It's
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You guys didn't just get back.
I'm
fine.
jet-lagged.
You're fine.
I'm jet-lagged, Mark.
We're fine, and CLG and TSM are not fine. Let's start with one of the big ones. We have a lot of big news to hit. Oh, by the way, we're going to do news, then patch, then power rankings. This is going to be the fattest episode.
There will be timestamps. So if you only want to tune in for one of those specific things, feel free to jump ahead.
Yeah.
But we're going to be starting with news. There's obviously a lot going on with team changes, all the NACL stuff. LCSPA announced there's a potential vote on a walkout even. So there's a ton of stuff going on.
So let's get going. Boom. Number one, the closest to my heart, CLG and TSM are both leaving. Everybody already knew CLG is turning into NRG.
Yeah.
They already sold. The TSM part is the new news. To me, I just want to start with, yes, there's a lot of other baggage, but to me, it is so sad as someone, who lived in the history of League of Legends to have both of these two teams that literally started competitive League of Legends no longer existing in the same year. I'm going to be very sad.
Yeah, definitely. I know they're leaving North America, but it was kind of the home of LoLesports. Like back in the day, Korea didn't have servers. Everyone played on NA. There was the European servers, but like China didn't have servers. And TSM and CLG was the rivalry that started almost the entirety of League of Legends esports. Like that was it. And so to have both orgs got kind of going at the same time, it does feel very jarring and surprising.
I mean, especially it's just so many of my favorite memories from the LCS are associated with these teams, right? Whether them playing in the finals or whether it is CLG MSI or CLG MSG. My favorite esports memory ever is casting 2016 in Toronto at ACC, and it's TSM C9, right? And the double lift play and all these things that are burned into my brain. And so for that reason, I'm really sad to see them go. But I mean, if you read my tweet about it, I was pissed the way that TSM did it. I felt like with how much the growth of TSM was associated with LCS and the growth of LCS, these things are interconnected, right? They grew together. TSM helped the LCS grow. LCS helped, TSM grow. League of Legends, everything kind of all in one thing. And I just felt like it was such a slap in the face to all the LCS fans who have watched and supported TSM over the years, how this announcement was done, where it just comes out in the middle of a game at MSI, 7 a.m. in LA time, and it just feels like it just gets dropped basically out of nowhere. And it felt like you're trying to hide it amongst all the discussion around MSI, though, of course, yes, people are going to find out about it. And then, to me, the thing that really actually kind of made me mad and made me want to tweet good riddance was the fact that Reggie's oh, this may be something that is surprising, but actually we've been wanting to leave for years, right? And everyone knows that TSM has not been as competitive as they were in the early years over these last couple of years, right? Has been a downward trend for them. And, for a lot of fans, obviously that was really disappointing. And that was really hard to see this team that was this perennial finalist that made 10, 12 straight finals, struggling sometimes towards the bottom of the table. And so I guess it just feels really bad. It feels like a middle finger to all those fans that were supporting them to basically be oh yeah, by the way, we've been wanting to leave for ages. And we didn't even try, right? It feels we didn't really care because we've been wanting to leave for a long time. And I do feel really bad for the players and the staff on both teams, right? Obviously CLG, there was a ton of layoffs. TSM let go almost their entire League of Legends staff after last split, have brought in some new people now. But I've also talked to people at TSM who aren't part directly of the league team, but are I don't know if I'm going to have a job anymore soon, right? And people are worried about that too. So that sucks. Like, it really sucks for the players. It really sucks for, I think, a lot of the fans, though I know there is a group of fans who definitely made themselves known to me on Twitter and whatnot, that like, hey, no, we're not LCS fans, we're TSM fans, and we're like happy to see them go wherever and support them wherever. But I do think there's also a huge portion of fans that are LCS fans and love TSM and are going to be really sad. And it's kind of like you guys don't really matter to us. We're going somewhere else. So that part really, really sucks.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to say about it. I think for me, if I'm going to give like the glass half full version, it's like better for both parties, I think, because of what you said about like TSM saying, we've been wanting to do this for years. And you can see basically it felt like after the Sword Art year, there was like that big step back to be like a reevaluation of like, hey, what are we doing? And so if TSM wasn't happy in the LCS and not committed to it and just trying to get out with one foot out the door for behind the scenes for a period of time, like it's good to get a new organ, hopefully that is invested and wants the best for NA. And it's good for TSM to go do what they want somewhere else if they want to commit, because in that video, they're talking about still wanting to win a championship. So like, okay, if you think you can win a world championship and you're going to go, everyone's assuming China. No, it wasn't confirmed where. They just said other tier 1 region, but like, no offense to Europe, but like if you want to win the world championship, I don't know if that's where you go right now. And so like it's either LCK or China, and given the history of them tied to the LPL, it does feel like
it's so interesting, because there were like, since this was kind of like a bit of like a known secret, people had heard rumors about this in the past and stuff. And when I initially heard the rumors, I heard that TSM was trying to go to the LEC, right? Because this was, I think 3 years back, LEC had won an MSI, and we're getting all these deep runs in Worlds and stuff. So like that felt like more of a real option. Now it doesn't really anymore, right? It feels like you have to go to LPL or LCK to potentially try to win, if that is truly your goal, to win Worlds. But I think that's also a monumental task. So many people have tried in the LPL to just throw money at it, and it is really hard to win in that league.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I like that approach. Like, if you truly love someone, Mark, you got to let them go. Let them be free.
I mean, even if they go and they don't win a world championship and they're just in the LPL, like you can be a middling LPL team and like be successful, arguably. Like it's a really huge market and region. And like that's, I think, the perspective that is being taken, as like North America is struggling a little bit right now, which will probably talk a little bit more on other topics, but like, I like, okay, go ahead. I think the fan angle is the interesting one, that like, I'm surprised there's as much backlash. You're pretty strongly worded over there. But like,
I was pissed. I read it and I was pissed.
Well, like, and coming from, at least for me, watching traditional sports, when a team leaves a region, those fans are not happy. Like when the Seattle Supersonics left and went to the Oklahoma City Thunder, like Seattle fans were not like, great, good luck, guys. Like they hated them and they cheer against them. And like, I think there's that feeling like when you get ditched effectively, like they're not going to cater to you anymore. And like, maybe I'm wrong and have the wrong read, but assuming you go to China and you start posting on Bilibili and like Weibo and these other like platforms that like Western fans don't integrate with very much, like I don't know that they're going to still put the effort in to cater to this market that they're saying is not worth it in their eyes, So like, it does feel like for TSM fans, like I don't know what the future holds, but like you might just slowly get like weaned off, and like by the time they're
is
gone,
there going to be full-time TSM social media in NA for an LPL team and videos made and translated for NA? That's a question that I guess we'll have to see.
And subtitles aren't hard to do, but you still have to like upload and like let people know that they're dropping and like all this stuff, because like LPL English content currently does not do that well. So in English speaking world. So I don't know. It's a can of worms, but like I think the bright side to it, while it sucks to lose like your most historic org, like if they weren't invested for the last couple of years, like you got to let history go at some point and like look towards the future. And it didn't feel like it was that with TSM.
And I mean, clearly there's just like, we've come to this kind of like reckoning in esports where this is happening all over esports. It's not just league, it's all games. It's not just LCS, where there is going to be a lot of turnover because investors are pulling out. It's kind of like esports winter where teams are going to have to get more lean and make hard decisions, right? Like we saw multiple teams actually change out in the LEC. I know in CBLOL there's been changes. Now obviously LCS is having some of the teams change out. And I think this stuff is going to continue happening, right? And the good news is that, from rumors that I've heard, there's a lot of teams that are actually still interested in buying these spots, right? That there were a lot of people that were interested in buying the spots from CLG, a lot of people that are interested in buying the spot from TSM, which people I think sometimes lose track of the fact that, and to me this really hits home because like I came from a bunch of different games and a bunch of different scenes. LCS is still like the biggest biggest league in North America, right? This is still a really big audience that we have watching this. It's something like 100,000 or so average viewers, I think,
roughly,
throughout the last year, which is still like a massive number of people. So while of course we all hope that things will continue to like turn around and grow, LCS is still in a very good spot overall.
Yeah, and what they've done with the roster for this split, the last split, the kind of ride off into the sunset, I think is kind of funny how it comes full circle, where Wild Turtle, who joined the team in their very first split of LCS, got a pentakill, and we had that iconic line, D-Man talking to Chaox, are you watching now? Turtle's back on the starting roster. Haunter's back on the starting roster. They're getting all these old players to come back in for league minimum, as they, have pulled a lot of resources here. I'm curious to see how this kind of last split actually looks for them, because it's going to be really hard. I think, as far as all the people who lost their jobs at TSM, Chowie was doing so much, coaching both Academy and LCS and doing all the scouting for them too. And they're just like, it seems like this is going to be the bad news bears underdog. We have, very little resources trying to scrap together, which I felt like last split was already a version of that.
Yeah.
And to even let go of stuff that they had last split and get even further down is going to be really interesting to see how the split plays out for them, because I, really fell in love with that squad last split. We had them on the game show.
Yeah.
Are You Smarter Than? They were so happy and connected and, just playing off each other and laughing. And the players, it felt like, with all the things that were against them, it made them a tighter squad.
Yeah.
And you could see that come through in some of the, in the content they were still doing. They were like, it creates, because it's such a difficult scenario, it kind of creates this super hardening of the team feel. And so I wonder if something like that continues and actually happens this split, or if it's a different feel because
one lesser off,
because everyone knows like they're like leaving out there. So I'm interested to see which angle it takes.
Yeah. So that's one angle of some news that's happened. Here's another one for you. The teams during this MSI period got together. You're talking about sponsors pulling out, tough time in esports currently. A lot of teams said that the cost of operating Academy was too high. They pushed Riot. They've tried multiple times, but this time they really pushed Riot to make it optional, and Riot agreed. They, for this summer split, made the Academy scene optional.
Seven teams pulled out.
7 teams pulled out. EG, Team Liquid, and FlyQuest remain. Hats off to you guys. And it was just a really interesting time. Tons of people. People were surprised to see it happen so suddenly. It's obviously, you talk about people losing their jobs. Like this is full teams and staffs just axed right overnight, basically. Now that they can shed these salaries. Like it's pretty brutal for that scene, which is a really integral part of North America as a whole, because it's where the future generations come from, and even players who like rehabilitate their career and have time to come back into the scene.
Yeah, and more so even than like kind of the feeling of losses, people are going to attack some very front and center issues with the teams, with the organizations, given this announcement. And given some of the rationale for this announcement. People are already coming back like, oh yeah, you don't have any money, why'd you spend $3 million on a single player? Sword Art, perks, these things that didn't give returns. The budgeting for the teams definitely will come under consideration. I think also something is the team's already effective use of what was there and talent scouting of Academy.
Yeah.
The Jojo Pyuns and the Blabbers are really rare, but those show that it can happen. And so a lot of people are posing the question, like, should that have happened more, with better utilization of the system or talent scouting? And so there's so many issues with this wrapped up. Everybody losing their jobs, budgeting itself, talent scouting at its core.
How does it affect
so
the
many
future of the
things.
league?
Yeah, so many things to evaluate.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. Obviously, first and foremost, I feel really bad for the players and the teams that found out, so last minute. I think it sucks. I would have liked to see that at least holds off till the end of the year, and then if a decision like that had to be made. But I do understand that teams obviously are going to be wanting it to happen immediately if they really feel like they're under financial crunch. But it does suck that the players don't really have much time to find new orgs or new jobs, really, right? I know Tony's Top's team basically dissolved because they basically just couldn't financially make it work anymore, with some of the changes, some of the things happening, which is obviously tough. But the one positive thing is that there's, some of the orgs coming in. I'm actually really excited that like Disguised Toast, he has a team that he's actually going to have in there, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, there are some positives, and I don't know if you agree, but I actually, and we're kind of jumping ahead to positive stuff here, but
I'll bring us back to negative in a minute. Don't worry.
If we extrapolate with living in the world and accepting like this is what it is.
Yeah.
If the academy or amateur or rank up system became, we have Disguised Toast team, we have LS's team, we have Tyler One's team, we have Ludwig's team.
Charlie, Moist, hit us up.
Yeah, Mr. Beast.
MXM, let's go.
Mr. Beast, yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. I mean, it is cool to see some new blood coming in, and I think some people that could potentially like bring new eyes to the scene, right? I know Disguised Toast has kind of done that with Valorant, and like some of the stuff he's done with Valorant. He's dipping his toes into some esports stuff. Moist Critical and Ludwig have their Moist esports thing, which obviously they're kind of dipping their toes in, and it's becoming kind of like this influencer space where it's almost like a microcosm of when you think about it's like people say like football like it is like billionaires playground, right? Because they're the only ones going to afford like the transfer fees for all these like incredible football players around the world and so on. And it's almost like esports is moving that way for influencers. It's like the microcosm of it. It's like the big streamers.
They make enough money that suddenly they're like, what do I do with this?
Yeah, exactly.
I like video games. I'm
so rich. Who cares?
Their advisors are like, okay, esports is going to be lighting a lot of money on fire. And they're like, don't care. It's kind of fun.
They're like, yeah, you know what? Sign me up. I'd love to burn this. Yeah.
So I mean, that kind of angle is fun, but I do think it definitely really sucks for the players, and I am concerned. It's like if amateur starts getting dismantled, right, and it feels like if this new system is not going to work as well, then it's like, yeah, what is the future like for the league? I have no problem with imports as long as the imports are committed to the league. Like that's always been kind of my stance on it. It's like if someone wants to come here and wants to live in LA and wants to make their career in the LCS, Bjergsen or Jensen or like an Core. Impact or a Core, these guys are not they're LCS players, right? They don't feel like some kind of mercenaries who are here for a year or a couple of years and then they just peace out, right? Because then I have no connection to people like that. Perks never felt like an LCS player to me, right? So I don't care where they come from as long as they actually want to be here. But it is concerning if there's no homegrown talent whatsoever. How do we actually get this pipeline in, and how do you really kind of incentivize players to even try, right? Because it's really disconcerting when you hear like Tenacity doesn't have a spot and he's saying
retired.
He's saying like, you know what? Like, what's the point? Like, there's no point in trying in NA because it's too hard. These teams are just going to import someone to take your spot. You should go to Europe. But that's not really like a viable answer for most people. Like I've seen that thrown around a lot.
I like Dardoc's response a lot on Twitter.
Who?
Dardoc had a response to that. You're going to tell like kids who don't have money to like chase their dreams in another country.
How are you supposed to afford it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just pack up and move to Europe. Also, by the way, you're going to need a work visa. So that means that you have to not just be competitive with the people that you're trying to take the jobs from. You have to be way better because
you're expensive.
If exactly, right? Like if you're not going to cost a visa, better be way better than your ass if they're going to spend twice as much to actually get me the visa and deal with all that. So I do think that North American players deserve a path to pro and deserve a system that is going to work for them. I hope that this can be built up in a way that, whatever the new system ends on, whether the LCS teams are just partnered and like subsidizing some of the costs for tier 2 orgs, or whether it is, exclusively tier 2 orgs and they're separate, but the players aren't getting like contract jailed anymore and they can just be sold up into LCS. Like I hope that there is some way that it can be worked towards where it is beneficial to these players, because people that are at the top level of League of Legends in NA do deserve a true path to pro and to have a real shot at making it to the LCS.
Yeah, and I think everybody agrees how important that is. That's why this was here in the first place. So the problem is giving the money and the budgeting for this path to pro and for academy was lumped in to money for League of Legends in general and your LCS team in general, and
this
it wasn't
is what was reported online.
Yeah. I wasn't even referencing the thing that was reported online. I guess the numbers reported as far as what Riot gave to teams, the publicly available was $3 million to the teams.
Yeah.
Instead of like, here is 2.4 million for your League of Legends team and 0.6 for an academy team. It was, here's all three.
Here's money.
And
do what you want.
you have to run an academy team.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does feel like, a lot of the onus is on the teams for not operating financially responsibly or misprioritizing things. It's a huge can of worms. I feel like there is truth to what teams have said on some level, both in terms of like the academy system. Is it really the best thing that we can do for the path to pro, like you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like it was buyouts, which was caused by teams, but like buyouts were a problem.
So many players have been in contract jail. I've heard that so many times over the years. You're like, why isn't this guy in the academy who's really, really good? Why aren't you guys picking him up? Be talking to a coach at the start of the year. They're like, he's too expensive. They want like $500K back.
Yeah.
Like within the last couple of years, I remember hearing like 3-4 years ago, teams were asking for $1 million buyouts for certain players in the academy. And it's like, it's just not financially responsible to get this player who, even if they're at the top of the academy, it's just not worth taking that risk.
And no offense to those academy guys, but some of them were making hundreds of thousands of dollars to stay in academy, to kind of get paid to for this or to believe in them, which is like kind of cool, but also like not really like how the system should be operating. So like there were legitimate problems as we head into the winter, as you're calling it, like would those have solved? I don't know. There's still problems. I think there is truth to the fact that it is a very expensive system relative to other development leagues in the world. I would argue that it's the most expensive system outside ERLs, which are profitable though because they depend on regionalization and like they have their own little markets that they exist in. So like you can kind of spend more there. And even then it's probably relatively comparable given the fact that because of the California state minimum requirements being, whatever it is, $65K a year, like I am so for people getting paid livable wages, of course, but at the same time, you also have to look. It shouldn't
be in California.
It shouldn't be in California then, because like these players don't produce enough value to make that worth it, and it's just like a doomed system in that case. And like you had to solve this problem somehow. You can go remote. The Players Association has pushed for a lot of these kinds of changes that didn't involve killing it right now. So like the timing is an issue, but there were changes that were needed. Like we were talking about with teams, like not spending responsibly. So it's like, well, isn't this like your hole that you dug into? But then at the same time, can Riot let a team like just crumble? Like if one of them was on the verge of bankruptcy, like you just like, that's a terrible headline. You talk about all these other headlines going on. It was a lot of things going wrong. But at the end of the day, I do feel like there is this like level of resentment that I can agree with fans on to how teams operated in terms of like not believing in their players. And like the stats I hear coming from teams. Steve did a video where he talked about like 70% of pros came from the LCS or from academy, but it was like a really cherry picked number that was like improperly shown. And then also like the cause of that problem is teams importing players that are going to leave immediately. And again, like you said, I have the same opinion on imports, but like people like Blue and Aka who are like getting hired basically because they're
bottom tier LEC players.
Bottom tier LEC players whose coaches are now on these orgs, and then they hire their friends and then they leave again immediately. And I don't blame Aka or Blue or any of these individual players in that situation, but like you're telling me that was a better investment long term than any of the players in academy? Like no shot. Like the system wasn't perfect, but it was also abused by the teams, which caused a lot of the problems in the first place.
I mean, think back to the example of Jojo. Jojo is like our diamond perfect scenario. He's going to Korea right now, 3 weeks. He's top 10 challenger. Like this guy is freaking NA talent to the extreme. And when he was announced for EG, there was a battle and people were like, why didn't you get Jensen? There were even Jojo, who has turned out to be this diamond, you had to overcome so much. And Peter Dunn had to like push really hard on the believe in talent and the system and moving people up. So like it is like you have to move mountains to get players, young players that are unproven, to get people to believe in them and to accept them and get them through this.
Well, it's like even with the Jojo example, when he was coming up and that got announced, I was thinking, all right, well, if he does bad, how long till they replace him, right? Like I think he even tweeted out, I was like, hey, if Jojo has a bad debut, how many weeks until Jensen's on the EG roster, right? And Peter Dunn responded, he's like, if that happens, I'm like basically like I won't be at the org anymore, right? Like, and it does take that kind of thing, right? It takes someone like being willing to draw the line in the sand and say like, no, like this, we should be taking a risk on these players. We should be, trusting that these guys are actually ready and that they deserve their shot. And obviously there's not, I think maybe enough people that feel like so strongly and so passionately about it who are making some of those decisions because it just hasn't felt like a lot of the players that maybe do deserve that shot have gotten it, right? Like Copy, I think, was the recent example, right? Who retired without ever kind of getting a shot in LCS. And this is a guy who has been like top of Challenger. I believe people were telling me that he reached even like top of KR Challenger and like all kinds of stuff. Like
Five Fires, another guy who like did very well.
And like, what else can you do if you're good in the amateur? You're top of solo queue. Like what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. And like, to be fair, like I say this too, like some players also don't want to play with North American players who are also North American players who like they play against this guy in solo queue and they think he sucks. And they're like, don't put him on my team. Like I know that's happened before. So like it's like an ecosystem wide problem. And so like I don't want to just scapegoat one and like make it easy, because if you make it easy, you don't actually fix any problems. So like you do have to acknowledge like the system did need changes. The changes that they proposed for this year or this split, I don't know how much we want to get into it, but like there's the 3 teams who stayed. There's 3 teams coming from the amateur side, like that promoted
Maryland University and stuff. Right?
Yeah, and then there's 2 more. I think Disguised Toast team's one of like the new ones. I think there's 2 new teams that are coming in.
Cincinnati Fear, were they new as well?
Yeah, I think no. Fish Taco was the new ones, I think. Because there's 3 collegiate teams. That's what I was missing as well, or 2 collegiate teams. So anyways, they're filling it up. They're doing rev sharing on Twitch subs that they're going to turn on for the channels that they broadcast on. Path to LCS, watch it. And then also they have like $100,000 prize pool, but like realistically, these numbers are going to come out so much lower than like the minimum guarantee that had basically existed because of the California law. So like it's still a big blow to these people. And like, again, the short-term people who couldn't find new jobs because it wasn't protected that if you were on an academy team, you are going to continue playing in NACL. So it was a really, really tough go of things.
I mean, it's just like it is a hard conversation because it's also like you said, this scene was also way more expensive than other scenes, right? And I come from all the background in the Blizzard games and like, know a lot of people who are either current esports pros or former esports pros across like basically every game that there is that's competing. And honestly, like academy players in LCS made more than like most tier, like, most like actual esport pros, like people who are at the top of their games in other games. Right. And that's just kind of the reality, is that it's like, I think that in a lot of ways, esports is like kind of like overshot how much money it can make. And there needs to be this kind of like reevaluation in the scene of like how much people should be spending and like what is actually realistic, what is profitable for this to stay around long term. And we kind of, that's why I say like esports winner or whatever, we kind of are in this place where it's like, okay, if teams really were so desperate that they couldn't possibly afford LCS a single board or academy a single board split, or they're going to go under, then like obviously something had to change, right? Like you can't allow that to happen, otherwise it's not going to be good for the scene either. But I would sincerely hope that these teams now are making the like financial adjustments and are being responsible with what they are doing in their LCS teams as well, to make sure that there's never anything like this happening again, right? Because it is impossible to not think that for a long time, really, like when was the first like $1 million contract? Like it was Immortals that really kind of like started the snowball.
Immortals blew it up. I don't know if they broke $1 million. I know Impact to Team Liquid.
It was like the Huni, wasn't Huni like that? Was I thought the first one, the Huni $1 million contract with Immortals.
It might have been that one. I know Impact was another huge one that like.
Regardless,
but like Immortals, and that was like what, like 2016, 2017, maybe 2017, I think, where things really started to get out of control. And I feel like literally everyone knew that these salaries were too high. And everyone's talking about it. Even the team owners are talking about it. The GMs are talking about it. Everyone's talking about, this is not sustainable.
They're like, what are we doing?
But it just kept going up.
Someone help us.
Because it just like got into this weird thing of like, it's like somebody help me manage my budget. I spend $5 a month on this, $80 million a month on Huni. Like, please help me. My LCS team is failing. But it's like, it's one of those things where everyone knew it was a problem, but it never really got addressed because it was kind of like this rat race of like, okay, well, if they're spending more, if you want to win and winning is your way to like get popularity, well, then you have to spend too. And it just kind of like kept going up and up and up and up. So I do hope that there is a readjustment and that like teams are going to be more responsible with how they're spending their money on the LCS side too. Because we want this to be around for a long time, and we don't want the tier 2 and tier 3 scenes and stuff to be negatively affected by that either, which it does feel like it's a knock-on effect of how some teams, I think, spent their money in LCS.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with it being bundled together.
Yeah.
And the problems with it being bundled together are that, looking at it from the team's perspective, if it is a lump, the LCS is how you get your advertisement in your eyes. Academy doesn't get eyes. Academy is how you build up the talent.
Yeah.
But when they're just looking at it, as far as the viewers, then that their decision is going to be easy. Regardless, though, there is going to be a path to pro. It is going to exist in some way. These are big hits, and this sucks. It's not going to go poof and cease to exist completely. It is going to take hits from this. And so I think, to your point of adjusting on the other side also, that's also taking hits. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, speaking of shaking out, of course, you have to imagine that the players are not happy about what happened.
Yep.
And so the LCS Players Association, I don't know exactly when this is releasing. It might be before the vote, after the vote, but they are going to be taking a vote on it before the vote. So we'll see in the future.
Yeah, we're recording this on Thursday. I've been told that Sunday by, I don't remember what time, but Sunday by sometime they're having a vote. It was maybe 8 p.m. PST or something. They're going to have a vote, something like that. I can't remember. Time's not important.
If you're on Reddit or Twitter, you'll see the result. But potential walkout of the pro players.
And they said if 26 out of 50, so if they have majority, a tiny majority, they will be trying to do something. They'll be trying to take it to however far they can, to really force, some changes to try to get some of the things that they're demanding be put in for NACL. Yeah,
they have a list, if you go to the Players Association Twitter, of suggestions and things that they want, accommodations, given that they basically just got punched in the gut in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it does sound like some of the pros are very reasonable about this. Like Fudge in an interview was like, yeah, we're probably overpaid, guys. Like if you took $50K out of all your pro players in the league and like assign that money to academy or like developmental leagues, like that makes sense. And like Vulcan was
promote Fudge to budgeting officer then.
This guy knows his stuff. But Vulcan as well was pushing quite heavily in favor of the vote. So like there are a lot of people who are fighting the good fight. You were gonna say something?
No,
I was just gonna say, like, I don't know, like, labor law stuff is like whoosh. I probably break tons of labor laws without paying attention. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing at any point in time.
We did break a law for a little bit, even on this previous episodes of the dive. So we're not that.
Our producer's actually in jail. We have a new one.
We can't even run sweepstakes without messing something up. So
obviously we're not financial experts or labor law experts.
We are breaking a few laws.
We might not even be League of Legends experts. Who knows anymore? But the point is, like, we can't. I don't know. Like, they have to examine.
We can't comment on that side.
Yeah, I don't know what is, like, they have their contracts. I'm sure they have to look at whatever repercussions can potentially be the fallout if they vote to do this. But I am 100% in favor of the players finding the best avenue forward for them, and like if that's the vote to walk out or expressing their opinions on this matter, however they feel like doing it. Like, I'm 100%. Pro player.
Hell yeah. I mean, there's power in numbers. That is legit, right? And if the players feel strongly enough to do this, then you do you, right? I think we're all down for that. We all support that. Obviously, I would be sad if LCS didn't like run this week. And it's like, okay, well, what happens now? But I hope that the players feel comfortable to vote however they feel they need to vote, whatever is right. I have the asks that LCSPA has. Some of them, I'm just saying, in my opinion, are pretty unrealistic, and I think there's a 0% chance they're going to happen. Some others may actually happen.
Some of those are the ones you put on the list because they're good ideas that like the community's going to rally behind, but because of contracts and stuff.
Like promotion relegation is never going to instantly come back. They want promotion relegation from NACL to LCS, right? We have permanent partnerships. They paid a franchise fee to get in. You would have to buy all the teams out of their franchise fee before that would even be possible. That's just not going to happen right off the rip, right?
But you put that one in there, and then you take it off the table to be like, look how agreeable we are. This is negotiation.
And the community, obviously, I think loves promotion relegation, and I do too. I love watching that. It was really exciting. And who wants a team that's going to be a bottom feeder just staying in the lead, right? You don't want that. You want people to be pushed out, and it also encourages investment in tier 2. But the teams that are in the LCS clearly invest massively into the league, and that's why they did permanent partnership in the first place, because otherwise teams weren't going to be willing to put that much money into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting to watch series that have really big stakes behind them, but there are also things that go along with it.
So the other demands, they want promo relegation. They want a rev pool for player salaries of $300K per NACL team per year. They want LCS orgs to partner with affiliates for cost sharing. They want Riot to guarantee LCS minimum contracts for the following year for the 5 players who win the LCS Summer Finals each year. So that means if you win the championship in summer, even if no team picks you up, I guess you would be guaranteed the minimum salary. And then the last rule is institute a 3/5 roster continuity rule to provide players on released NACL rosters first priority in maintaining their slots in the upcoming NACL season if a majority continue to compete together. So those are their demands. We'll find out what actually comes from that. I'm pretty interested to see, what's going to happen with the vote and what's going to kind of come next. Because this would, set a precedent potentially, because if the players, do work together to make some changes or make something happen, then I think that's going to be a bit of a wake up call to players in leagues elsewhere in the world that like, hey, like we actually do have some power here. And that may be the first step towards, LCSPA and stuff actually having some real power, and these players associations actually having some real power. Because if you look at traditional sports, those organizations have a massive amount of power in collective bargaining agreements.
Yeah, I mean, making a union, I don't know what goes into it, but like for a long time, the Players Association has been a bit of a punching bag within the community about the fact that it has like no teeth and it doesn't do anything. And it feels like they're finally potentially
This is the
willing.
first time they've tried, it feels like.
Yeah, and like to be fair to the Players Association, I think Phil, but like but there's a lot of conversations behind the scenes. It's not like it's the most public facing that like you only have to go nuclear a couple times, hopefully, So anyways, point is, it's a really interesting time in League of Legends.
True.
That's the point.
Yep.
Boom.
You know why else?
That's the point.
Well summarized, Mark.
You know why else it's interesting? Patch.
Boom.
Boom. Look at that transition. You guys are too asleep at the wheel.
He's
You're jet lagged. I got the
smooth with
transition.
it. He's smooth. Oh my God, my laptop's about to
He's no
restart.
jet lag. He just has brain lag.
Oh, my laptop wants to
You're
restart.
operating on my level now. You know the pain.
Perfect. So we are moving in 13.10. It's midseason. Let's be honest, it's not a midseason.
It's preseason, baby.
This is bigger than preseason was this preseason. So there is an enormous amount of changes and not really enough time to balance it all before pro starts, because we are starting on 13.10. 13.11 has some giga nerfs. We're not going to talk about 13.11 because we are playing on 13.10, with like pre-nerf Ghostblade, pre-nerf Hurricane, some of these things that are getting really hard hits in the next patch. So it's going to be a little bit of the Wild West. I know, Kobe, you've played definitely the most of this.
Yeah.
I played a couple games yesterday. I started watching videos and trying to learn a bit about it. But while we were at MSI, I wasn't even looking at it because I try to not get confused with the next patch when I'm casting.
I had to play my Decay game, so.
Yeah, you had to get in there. So you were in there. You're more up to date on it.
I mean, this is actually a first in the history of the LCS that we get to play on a preseason patch. And I'm calling this shit a preseason patch.
Preseason 2.
Because they said we're going to do preseason level changes in mid-season now. And that's always been at the beginning of the years with multiple patches to, have tweaks and stuff to the super OP Omega stuff. But we're literally starting LCS super early. We're starting next week. And so we're going to be playing on it. So we get to see pros experience what I always find a really enjoyable part of League of Legends. I love theory crafting.
Yes.
I love when stuff gets released and it is super OP because I value the skill of being able to identify those super OP things and jump on them and abuse them early. I love abusing OP shit, Mark.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, like, do you find this exciting? And like, while this is a very unique period of time, like something that should be chased a little bit more often, because I do feel sometimes like we are playing like a neutered version of League of Legends. We're like, okay, we never play on the live patch. We always play after things have been balanced. Usually, I mean, there's still plenty of times things are imbalanced, but like, like you're always like behind and not getting like what players are feeling in the moment in that sense. So like, I'm kind of like down. Like, is it balanced for the start of a season? No, I still think you should like freeze things for like playoffs and stuff like that. But like, this is fun. Like, I'm excited. And like, this is something that like the old days had. Like, I remember when I was coaching and Targons came out, and Targons was so broken. You built that on 4 people. And like, we started spelling Targons with our bands and stuff. And like, it was just like the Wild West. And like, I appreciate some of that coming back.
Yeah, I definitely am going to enjoy it. I find it exciting. I don't know about the last part where you said, should we chase it more? We will see. We do have, it's a long season. It's just the beginning of it too. We're going to jump to the adjustment patch because the adjustment patch is coming out next week anyways. And then, so we'll jump to it pretty quickly, but, let's get right into it because that's what people want to hear is what can you still abuse right now before it gets nerfed. And there is a long list of stuff. Also, this is one of the like preseasons that I was least excited for because I had been having so much fun playing Volley Bear and spamming, my champion and playing my way. I had found my groove. And then when a preseason thing like this gets released, one of the drawbacks of this type of thing is that you basically have to play what they make OP if you don't want to play at a disadvantage. And since I'm playing ranked, since this is preseason on ranked, I want to win. And so I felt like I had to ditch what I was having fun with previously. And for some people, if they're one tricks, you
absolutely
then
have to. You're right.
You just get boned, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I'm used to it. I'm a one trick. I play this whether it's good, whether it's bad. That kind of sucks. And for me, I've played since the very beginning, so it's fine. I'll play Ghostblade junglers. Whatever. You made him super OP. Goodbye, Volibear.
Why not Ghostblade Volibear, man?
Just run fast.
Honestly, that was the first thing because in its very, that was literally the first thing I thought of. I was like, move speed. I like that.
Free cues, baby.
I can work with some lethality. I can make it work. So I thought about it. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to bring back,
what if I play
Talon and Kha'Zix.
Talon?
Yeah. Because they already had Kha'Zix in a really OP spot. Kha'Zix before this was, 54% win rate type of stuff. Anyways, the things you need to abuse right now, we should actually just get that list out and then we can have more fun discussions. Ghostblade. Yes. Everybody already knows this. Jump on the Ghostblade right now. It is going to get nerfed. Like Azael said, the next patch is already slated. So you can kind of see some of the things are getting hit. But the most OP are the things that have multiple OP items. Assassins have Ghostblade, but guess what? Marksmen have Gale Force Turbo OP and Stormrazor's Turbo
I was gonna say
OP
Stormrazor's
too.
So good.
I would also like to mention Zeri is fully back. Trinity Force got some really nice buffs. They added a bunch of damage to a lot of things, which to me seems kind of weird since we just did a durability buff and now a bunch of items are getting free damage. Trinity Force, Stridebreaker, all these types of things. It feels like more damage is going back in. Rabadon's got 5% more bonus AP as well. But these are the types of things that you need to really abuse. And if you're a support, you have to play Echoes. The new item, Echoes of Helia, is basically like Old Athenes. Yeah. It is the best healing, and it does damage now. Yeah. So it just blew Moonstone out of the water.
It's so good on like Janna, on Melio, on like any of the enchanters. It's
speaking of which, I was gonna get to champions next. Janna is so OP. Yep. Right now, you need to play this champion. Yeah. It is turbo really busted right now. I was for a long time talking about Neela. Neela's in the best spot. Please, nobody plays this champion. But if you have ever wanted to play this champion, now is the time. You can build Ghostblade or you can build Gale Force.
Gale Force, yeah.
The key thing is you can build any of the OP items. And she's so insane right now. You need to
Her win rate's crazy for how little people want to play her, though.
Janna is always high
Neela.
Oh, Neela.
Yeah.
But Neela, obviously I'm a jungler. I like initiating and stuff like that too. So I find the marksman, she's incredibly fun and incredibly OP right now. The other marksmen that are very good, Kog'Maw and Jhin, because Jhin also builds the Gale Force Stormrazor combo. Yeah. And all the marksmen have so much move speed now because Gale Force has 7% flat move speed on it. You don't have to wait for the bonuses to come in from your other items.
Yeah. They made the mythic passives like a lot less important now. Like I know I've listened to Freak's he did like a 2.5 hour video talking about.
You listened to all of Freak's video?
Well, God damn. I just like kind of had it on side monitor and had it sped up.
I thought you had it on the plane. I YouTube download so many like podcasts, long form things on planes and just.
So Freak is super adamant that 80 carries are nerfed, and like, and he said
that's such bullshit. There's just different OP ones now.
Literally 100 times in the video. By the way,
oh my god!
He's like, he just every 5 minutes, I'm nerfing 80 carries this patch. So it's like,
go ahead.
So here's the thing. So mathematically, a lot of the items are worse, right? So that is true. As far as the ones that actually like got better mathematically, it is like so Gale Force has more scaling, but it's weaker early. The two that just like mathematically were better mostly were like Hurricane and Bloodthirster as far as
Trinity Force. If you count that as one, you got free damage.
Yeah. I think he wasn't really talking about that as much for ADs because I think it probably was less expected.
Yeah, I mean, you can build it on some though. I'm just saying.
Bloodthirster, if you stay high health, is basically just like 1,000 gold of extra like efficiency because of the AD. Yeah. But obviously, you're not always gonna be full health and stuff, and you lose survivability. Hurricane just like straight up got way more efficient. Yeah. New Shiv is way more efficient than the old Shiv as well. So there's some stuff, but like. I think Cog is crazy right now because the Rageblade Mythic is really strong. Hurricane is really strong. You can even do like Bork Rageblade and go full tank. You can do Bork Rageblade Hurricane then go tank. Like you don't need more than 2 to 3 damage items on this champion. And
slap
his
Titanic on that baby.
Is crazy. Yeah. So it's like you can do random ones. You can do like Abyssal. You can do whatever the heck you want. And you pair it with some of the enchanters that are really strong. Like you're talking about with the new item. I think that's one of the strongest pairings there is in the game right now. And it's really difficult to deal with. I played a little bit of COG, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like,
he's trolling if he thinks play for bottom is not still the goated strategy right now. Play for bottom is goated, because I wanted to jump in on your thing on Freak too, because I think, and I don't know, we're memeing on him. We're always gonna say Freak, right? Yeah. Whenever we're making any jokes about,
but he was responsible for most of the AD changes for this.
But
patch.
I want to say, Freak got a hold of support items too, buddy. Yeah. support items got a lot jacked up too. Guess what? Bottom lane is not just AD carries. Bottom lane also now has a bunch of support buffs with a lot of these items. You know, like they're thrown around like everything's on sale. Even Shroud, oh, guess what? 200 gold off that. Oh, you know what? He even took, not that many people were building Radiant Virtue on junglers, on tanks. And he was like, you know what? Support item now. We're cutting the cost. We're making it cheaper. So there's a lot of buffs down to supports as well. So playing for bottom lane is still insanely strong. And I have even started adapting, building some of the support items because they're getting these changes on junglers as well. There is, and I always hunt down high ELO Korean challengers, or ELO, excuse me, from the old days.
MMR, sir?
Yeah. There is a 1,000-point challenger Korea Maokai one trick that builds full support items, rushes Radiant into
the top lane guy?
No, not top lane.
There's some other guy
jungle
doing that in top
and
lane.
Builds why am I blank? Redemption.
Yeah.
Rushes Redemption into Convergence into, you know, it's full support Maokai with Guardian. He takes freaking Guardian as jungler. It's getting to such extremes right now because
they're so
playing for bottom lane, building for bottom lane, peeling for bottom lane is a very, very
the ideal way to play the game.
A very successful strategy. That being said,
JDG, right? Like they're the best 5v5 team, the best about playing around Ruler, protecting Ruler, and Ruler's obviously just a god. So yeah, you want to play for him, but like that's how they won MSI.
Even Shroud is I build on a bunch of junglers now because it's so incredibly cheap. You
and the damage imp is really impactful right off the gate.
You get it. The only problem with it is if their support is also building it. So you have to watch. You can't just autopilot and blind because you have Nautilus support or somebody else. People are doubling up on these items, but I feel like everyone should have it because the 200 gold price reduction was
one of the things
very efficient.
Also realized a lot of people don't realize about Even Shroud is that it's like actually an AoE debuff.
It also happens when people CC you. It's not just your CC that happens. So it's very good.
A lot of people talk about but it's single target
so burst.
Like if you like flash W on Maokai in the middle of 3 or 4 people, everyone's taking 10% more damage.
Here's the best ones. Maokai, Zac. The holy trinity for these champs right now, by the way, Even Shroud plus a Sunfires plus the newly buffed magic resist reducing one, Abyssal Mask.
Yeah.
You get those 3, holy moly, you actually one-shot backline. Zac is very, very good option right now. That being said, I played a couple games because of this Korean challenger of the support Maokai. I won. I didn't like it. That's not me. So I went back to Ghostblade builds. I was playing Talon. I was playing Kha'Zix.
He wants to be a superstar.
It's really fun.
For me, Aegis Rush junglers from season 4. That was my peak jungling. Just build that and stand next to my carries. Have the aura, guys.
So I always try and tell my supports, if it's a tank support, build Locket. Locket has also even got better. Really good, I'm trying to tell my supports, build the Locket. The Even Shroud is mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's definitely really strong. Jenna, just for what it's worth, Echoes of Helia, that's like the new item. Yeah, it's 57% win rate if you have that item in Diamond Plus.
And those win rates, especially like low analytics, like you have to look at those in comparison to you have to evaluate things on even ground, right? So
of course, but it's still just it's insane. Yeah, it is far outperforming every other support.
Things right now are spiking. Like I was mentioning, Neela. The 1 and 2 item power spikes for Neela right now are some of the highest win rates that I've seen.
Well, this isn't like item order. I'm just talking about like if you have this, it tracks the win rate of just if you have this in your build at 57.
Yeah, I know.
Because first item and stuff, it's like 65, which is
that's what you should be building. You have to be, and basically Moonstone just got headshot.
Yeah.
Everyone, there's little Moonstone buffs coming though. If you're a Moonstone supporter, they're not enough.
Yeah.
I will say Static Shift is actually really fun to have
So
back.
Static Shift I saw was on the buff list for the next patch.
Yeah, it's not performing that well.
So
It's getting buffed.
fun fact, it was only built by 72 Volibear players, but it had a really high
I was going to ask you about it when you said you tried Ghost, but I was like, you had to try lightning
Double lightning.
lightning bear again.
The Vagar one shot
No.
Static Shift stuff.
Dude,
that
that
was on Reddit.
They did the math, and I watched the one video where someone's like, look how gross this is. And it was like 400 damage to like a handful of people. And I was like, that's what you're
I saw
like.
some videos. I don't know if it was from PvE though, where like he's literally one-shotting people with one auto because he has Lichbane, Static Shiv, and like 1,000 AP or whatever. He's farmed a ton of stacks, but he's Qs, and then like the Q doesn't even hit them. He just gets the Lichbane proc and just autos and one-shots them. It's like a 2,000 auto attack with the zap plus the Lichbane proc plus all the obviously the passive AP stack.
The buffs look pretty substantial.
And the wave
so I
clear
might have to play double lightning Volibear.
The wave clear is actually kind of crazy with it because it hits 9 minions now. It's also turbo annoying. Just like how it bounces, because like I was playing a Malzahar game, and I can't remember what I was playing against, but someone built this, and it just would bounce through the entire mini wave and knock off your passive permanently. It was so annoying, and it's like every wave you're getting chunked with this. We were in this like kind of stalemate situation mid lane, and it's like I was literally just having to base just from static shiv damage over time. Like I'm just slowly getting shivved to death.
I'm glad that there's so much like functionality back into the game. I guess like things that do different things. It did feel, because the preseason this patch wasn't that big, like only jungle got changed, was like some new items, and like some mythics
top
got
changed
tweaked
a little bit, but like bot basically didn't change at all.
And even the tweaks top were like a little bit on tank items, but they did the same thing. It's like, okay, now not everything has bombies on it. It's its own thing now. But like I've been playing with bombies for like since the beginning of the game, since Sunfire came out. You know, it's like it's not a new item. You just keep changing it like marginally. Whereas like Static Shiv, again, I guess not a new item, but it's been out of the game for a while, so it's just fun to have new things back in.
And I think build paths for ADs are actually a lot more interesting now. Like I do like functionally some of the changes, like whether or not you agree with Freak that like it's nerfed or not. Like I know the numbers on a lot of things have been nerfed. I know talking to a lot of ADs anecdotally just feel like the role is stronger, potentially because they have more options and more choice. That is obviously going to make it feel really, really good. But I do like that ADs can't do these builds that were just so disgusting, where it's like you're just immune to damage early with Bloodthirster Shield plus Overheal and things like that. Yeah, I like that Immortal Shield Bow is not just like, you know, as crazy strong super early, because it's not even a mythic anymore, and it's meant more to be like a later game thing. It's more like a third item, a fourth item kind of thing. I think it's interesting that Kraken is not a mythic anymore. So it's, but if you're going to be like chain hitting the same target, then that can be powerful late game. Like
you can slot it in versus like
BT can be super strong. If you're playing like a protect the AD carry comp where maybe you're long range, you're not going to be hit at all. The flat AD when you're high on health from BT could be like higher DPS than some of the pure DPS.
Feels so
items.
Good on Jhin when you're just like full health sniping with shitload of
or like
AD.
Caitlyn, maybe you're not getting hit or whatever because you have the range. Like I do love that the options are there, and I think Shiv is way more interesting than a lot of stuff before. I feel like Hurricane has like more defined power than before. I think that's cool. I also think it's cool that they gave AP ratios to a whole bunch of items. Not that they're like trying to actually be that strong, but it makes it feel like a Baron buff is not useless, and if you're building a Rage Blade, your Amp Tome is not useless. So I think that they like have done a lot of cool things that are going to make the champions feel better to play. I also just feel like, well, mythic passives are basically just pointless at this point because they've been like kind of nerfed down, and mostly they're largely pretty weak. But they were never that interesting to begin with, so like I would be totally fine with mythic passives just being gone.
And remember, we're approaching this. I always approach preseason with an attitude of excitement, and I love memeing on Freak, but yeah, obviously the preseason level of this patch is going to need adjustments. There are things that are very, very OP, and we're critiquing it knowing these are very OP. Yeah. Now, as far as the mythics, this is a topic that I actually feel like is its own topic in that I have been a strong believer in doing away with this whole structure of even having mythic items. I think it is an unnecessary restriction on your build variability and the creativity that players can have. It is shoehorning so many things, and we're living in a world that almost feels like items are more important than the champion that you are playing. And I think that the entire mythic system should be done away with. I was very happy to hear in one of the dev blogs that they posted a few months ago, they were even open. They said they were open to the idea of adapting or getting rid of altogether with the Mythic system, which I think is great because I love that feeling. You feel like you're smart and you're making a good choice when you're able to adapt your build and you're able to flexibly deal with whatever patch. You know, I can deal with some nerfs, or if they make a mistake somewhere on, you know, some item or some champion or whatever, I can cover for it, you know, with variety here. But if you're shoehorned and you're given this unnecessary restriction on Mythic items, I feel like it is just creating extra things to have to work around and not providing a really good sense that they're going after. You know, they're going after this fantasy of the big, powerful, you know, item. And I am a proponent of having actives and interesting,
and it can help like your items, one item spike can feel really nice with a lot of the mythics compared to.
But if you're living in a landscape where you're able to balance all of the items evenly and you don't have to deal with, you know, the reason we have Ghostblade in its current form right now is because they felt like they had to shoehorn into this Mythic system, and they're like, oh, we're deleting Prowler's Claw from Mythic, so that means we have to replace it by bumping something else. And you know what that means? If you bump something to a Mythic, you have to buff the power of the item. Let's take Ghostblade, which was already a very efficient item that people sometimes rushed before their Mythics, by the way, and add on to it because we're making a Mythic now. So now you're taking an item that was already quite good and you're buffing it with Mythic style powers, and you get something that's overpowered and
I will go
turbo OP here. So
in defense of Mythics, I think the like passive that scales as you get items is whatever. Like I don't love
Mythic
that.
passive is no one even notices it.
Yeah,
I mean, I do notice it, and I actually take it into account a lot.
No one except Kobe notices it.
It's one of the reasons I stopped building Radiant Virtue, because they nerfed that. In addition, they squished the item.
No, it's power. I'm not denying it's power. I'm just saying it's not interesting. No one cares about it. Like from a gameplay. Because it's power.
Go ahead.
God, I know you're a little try-hard power gamer. I'm not saying it doesn't matter.
I swear, they could literally take it away so it does nothing, but it would just still show the number. You wouldn't notice.
Yeah, like
no, you wouldn't.
Just continue your point, because I'm going to.
So like the one item power spikes was a legitimate problem before Mythics existed. So like it wasn't like without this system, like it was all sunshines and rainbows. Like a lot of classes felt terrible on their first item because like you had to first stack crit more, or you had to stack mana better, or you had to do like these like checklist things before your character turned online that like people didn't like playing, and like it felt really bad. So like I understand there was a legitimate design goal they were trying to hit. I think the idea of like a capstone build defining item is cool, whether that's like your first item or whatever. And I think it also creates classes that protect, like by having a class called Mythic that is exclusive, you can't get really toxic builds where like someone can get these interactions that are not healthy. Ezreal stuff for historically. Yeah. Xayah, if you had like both Navori Quick Blades as they are currently with like Infinity Edge, would be like disgusting because she just scales insanely with both. And so like slotting her into like one of those two is important because there are just some champions who are designed in certain ways that can abuse combinations of items, and like you can potentially protect from some of those. So I do think Mythic has a place potentially. I don't think it's just like you can't have build diversity because like this thing works really well with one character kit, or like you have options. Some characters do have options as well between which Mythic in which game that they're going to take.
To counter that just a little bit, one of the points I actually enjoy, and of course, I realize I'm not the majority of players, but I personally enjoyed the ability in the world where you're talking about you need all these specific things as a champion. You don't feel good until you have some of them. I personally liked, I'm going to build a Kindle gem here because I need to have this step in health plus cooldown reduction. And then I don't even finish that. I'm going to build the wing plate because movement speed is my next most important, stat that I need. Then I go back and I finish this item that, I actually like sitting on even small component items and like being able to have this.
You play PoE, of course you like that.
This flexibility and these steps.
Inventory management.
I fully recognize
playing Tetris in his inventory.
It is way simpler and easier for players to be able to build one item. Oh, I need a tank mythic. This one comes with health, magic resist, armor, and then whatever flavor you have on it,
simplified build.
You're like, oh, that's straightforward. That's easier for new players. I totally respect that as well as understand it.
Yeah, like in 99% of situations for a new player, it's just correct to just go for your mythic first item every game.
Yeah, but I do feel like we run into some issues in this area of having the restrictions.
There definitely can be, but I do think I kind of like mythics personally because I just like the feeling of like I'm getting a stronger one item power spike and I'm getting something that feels fun to use right away because it does feel like in a lot of situations you kind of got stuck building things that weren't necessarily what you wanted, but it was what you needed.
Some people, and maybe it also comes from my experience with having so much focus on Volibear for a long time for the past few months before I dropped him, is that part of the big nerfs to this champion weren't even that they nerfed all his abilities. It was that they split apart the mythics and they made Turbo Chem Tank only magic resist. Yeah. And so now Volibear, you basically have to build Iceborne Gauntlet. I was doing a variation build that's very, very low percentage people with Radiant Virtue. That now also got shrunk down, which isn't necessarily
it feels really bad if you don't have a good mythic for your champion.
It isn't super. Yeah, but I'm just saying it reduces the creativity in builds when you see everybody builds Lucidity boots into Iceborne type of thing.
Yeah, and I hope with the changes that they introduced with more functional items here, the diversity comes from like what you do after Mythic or like in combination with Mythic, and like you can find a middle ground hopefully between like a simple start into like, do I want the Kraken Slayer or do I want Runons or like do I want static? So like like just figuring out, are you hitting multiple targets, one target, what are you doing, and like make your build from there or something.
And this is a bit of a test drive for you anyway, right? Because it's like they're taking some of these items that were mythics and now they're legendaries. They're not mythics anymore. So if that's successful, maybe they will move more towards what you're talking about and say, hey, we don't need any mythics. Yeah. But should we jump on power rankings?
Sure.
1 hour in, starting power rankings. Yeah, so this is going to be our fattest episode ever.
Maybe not. Maybe
what's the longest dive episode ever?
I don't know. Probably an hour and a half, maybe a bit more than that.
Let's break it right now. 143, we're breaking this shit. I'm filibustering.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to pee then, because I already kind of have to pee.
Well, you shouldn't have drinking 6 matchas before we started.
That's true.
Well, Mark brought me 2 of them, so.
I guess I should have been the responsible parent. And then, like, we're about to get in the car. We're about to get in the car, Kobe. You're not going to drink a gallon of milk or water before
you have to cut them off. All right, so in the power rankings, we're moving on to Summer Split. Normally, there's not a lot of changes. This time there was actually a lot of changes. Yeah. Because some pretty crazy stuff
between
happened.
Spring and summer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, between spring and summer. We're moving into summer. As I said, I mean, EG,
boom.
They are kind of like the biggest change because that roster just blew up.
It got headshot.
That seems like financial stuff very clearly. They're cutting back and their whole roster blew up. It's only Jojo remaining on EG. And that was a team that a lot of people saw as potential championship winners. So I know talking to some of the different teams and different GMs and stuff, like, hey, maybe our chances of making Worlds aren't so bad now. One of the teams they feel fell out of the running. So it could open things up a little bit more. But do we want to start at the top?
So I was going to ask, our top 3 are not very interesting. Would we actually go reverse for once?
No.
I mean, we can breeze through it. So starting at number 1.
Wait, no, he doesn't want to start at the top. He wants to.
No, you said should we go into reverse, and I said no.
Well, normally we start 10, 9, 8, and we work our way to number 1 for the big reveal.
No, we don't. We've never done that.
I swear to God,
we've literally never done that.
Everyone else does that. We suck. What are we even doing?
Starting at number 1. Cloud9, we all agreed upon Cloud9 at number 1. I don't think this should be a great surprise to anyone. They obviously already won the championship in spring. They seem like the team with the least amount of question marks.
And they killed it at MSI.
Killed it at MSI. They won a BO5 internationally.
Can't ask for more.
Can't ask for. We could. You wouldn't get it.
No.
But they took down Golden Guardians, and I think to me it's just that they're the team that has the least question marks. I think my concern for both teams that went to MSI is like how burned out are you? Because I think the schedule is absolutely brutal for LCS teams. They are coming back, and either you don't scrim for week 1 or literally you step off a plane and you start scrimming because teams were already scrimming. Teams were using the MSI teams for their practice for this split. TL was boot camping in EU practicing for this split, right? Well, the tournament's still going on, so that's my only kind of question mark.
And to just make that MSI hangover topic that we always talk about even more extreme, you're coming back to a preseason patch, baby.
Yeah.
So they'll probably just come back, get off the plane,
flip it.
They take their break, and then once you start scrims, it's everyone's just telling you what's the OP thing, and then you have to jump on that and you get a couple games and boom, okay, let's go into let's go play it on stage.
I feel like
my highest hope.
It's a reading items on stage angle. I don't think that these teams are prepping this patch before they start.
It's a Lolytics highest win rate. Lock it in.
My highest hope is that Berserker plays Neela.
He did bust it out before.
He has exactly, and it is primed. Give me some Neela angle.
We'll see if they do anything fun. I think fortunately for the C9 squad, like most of them are grinders. Like Sven in an interview was like, yeah, I don't really care that like it's a short turnaround. Like I'll be fine. I assume Berserker and Eminez are pretty much the same way.
They both were streaming already. I saw them.
Yeah. So like I think they'll be okay. Even if they have a slow start from the MSI hangover, it's one of the few teams that has 100% carryover across the splits. So I have a lot of faith. I think that's why they're our number one, the community number one consensus. We polled Twitter as well. So everyone agrees they're number one.
They were the best. They're still the best.
And I'm really excited to see MNS's development though, because while it is all saying the same, obviously there was the Ash King tweet. I think that was really cool that he was after they lose to Gen G, he's going up to Jovi and asking him for tips and everything. I think that was really cool. And I thought he actually held up well in lane against Jovi. To be honest, their problems were outside of lane. Their problems were team fighting and coordination and whatnot, more largely. But MNS obviously had a really good first split, and I think everyone's going to be excited to see how he looks having a full split, right? Because he only had 7 games down the stretch or something like that before playoffs with them. He didn't have a full split to actually play with Cloud9, so I'm really excited to see him for summer.
Yeah, want to see some interesting champ pool changes from him as well. But Cloud9 deserves their spot. Guess what? Also unanimous. With us and Twitter, by the way. We have the Twitter power rankings alongside here that our producer collected. He said a large
Maybe
majority.
We'll have a cool graphic. That'll be right here.
Yeah, he said a large.
Post-production.
They love when I do that.
Yeah.
He said he got a large number of very troll ones, which we included. Everything is included here. They're averaged with the troll
you're
ones.
Smart or you're dumb, you're still in the Twitter power rankings.
Congratulations. Yeah. But they agreed. Cloud9 number 1. They also agreed. FlyQuest number 2. And FlyQuest picked up Vulcan. That is such a huge pickup for them.
Most savage roster swap of all time, by the way.
Not only
man trash talks him all year long and then takes his job.
Not only is it savage, but it's also like the best possible improvement that you can make with this team. If you're evaluating the team from last split, that was a huge area for improvement. I would also say though, the coordination, oh my goodness. They even said it themselves. Spica was talking about, we don't even know who we're focusing in fights. We don't know how we want to play out our skirmishes. So they need to focus on skirmish coordination, getting everybody on the same page, as well as incorporating Vulcan now. But from what Vulcan has already said, it seems like, you guys had him on Hotline League. I think FlyQuest is going to come back with a vengeance.
Yeah, I asked if it was like, are you guys like instantly smurfing on people, or is it a work in progress? He said it's a work in progress. I think to that point that like the team was not like perfect, but even despite the issues that everyone saw in them in the second round robin and in playoffs, they were still fighting to make finals. They still almost went to MSI. It was this close. It was like game 4 they should have won and like easily could have been our representative. So the fact that they were number 2 while having issues, and like we can debate if this teams got stronger or not. But the reality is that like with Vulcan coming in, that's at least an upgrade in lane. He's probably going to be a good shot caller. He's worked with Impact previously on EG. So like there's a lot of things that speak for FlyQuest to do very, very well in spring split. Even though Golden Guardians did beat them, summer split, even though Golden Guardians beat them in spring, it looks like most people.
This is a huge upgrade.
Yeah.
Ayla just did not look that good when he actually joined the team, right? And it's a shame because the circumstances around Ayla joining the team felt really bad, right? Obviously, they were already on this huge win streak. Winsome is in there. They're doing really, really well. So I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure when you join a team that is undefeated, or maybe they had one loss, I guess, with Winsome. But he comes in, clearly was very nervous. I don't think you should do that because he might mess up the audio channels, right?
Who knows what's going to happen when I do this?
Okay, don't do that. And he just didn't perform well. And to me, it looked very clear like Ayla was really struggling with nerves, right? Because when he was playing on TL Academy, he looked really good. And when he came up and actually replaced Core for a while, yes, he was being kind of enabled and got to play his like best champion and Thresh a lot, but he actually looked really good. So this felt a bit bad from that angle, but it's a clear upgrade. Vulcan has been really good on a bunch of teams, won championships with multiple teams, and I think that this is going to be an immediate upgrade that does push them into that conversation. My biggest question is just how good will Vikla be? Because I have a lot of faith in M&S. I do not have a lot of faith in Vikla. Vikla was so up and down and was honestly way worse than I thought he was going to be after how good of a, kind of beginning to his career he had in the LCK.
And even the first couple of weeks in NA was pretty good.
Yeah, but he just had so many kind of int games. He had so many games where he's just making bad decisions, where he's making mistakes and really kind of costing his team. So to me, it's funny to say, but I actually think that C9's biggest gap over this team right now is in mid lane. And, he's going to have to improve. But if he does, they could easily win the championship.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'll save my Ayla points when we get to EG, I guess. But otherwise, I'm in complete agreement where like FlyQuest had multiple holes that they need to fill. It wasn't just the support, but the support position is the biggest upgrade you could possibly find. And Vulcan brings a wealth of experience to help outside lane phase as well. That brings us to our number 3 team. Also unanimous, though there was a bit of like percentage point differences from Twitter about if Golden Guardians would hold on to this spot. But it is Golden Guardians number 3 for us all. I think I saw enough at MSI to like really believe in this team. I mostly believed in them in Summer Split when they went on that 7-0 run, but then they fumbled at the end. They still have not had a winning record regular season yet. 9-9 is the best they've ever done. So it was a little sad to see them stumble at the end of the regular season, but then their postseason was great. Licorice just like became a different player overnight, it felt like, from some of the performances we saw in the regular season.
Yeah.
Their coordination got a lot better. Gory, Huhi, and River became like this 3-man death squad. Stixay stepped up. Stixay had a little bit of a rough MSI against some of the other world-class AD carries there in an AD carry meta. But like for the most part, they still absolutely trashed play-ins and then like looked okay in some of the games.
BLG.
Yep, looked okay and like
better than the LCK. 2 teams couldn't even get 1 win. Golden Guardians did that. It was easy.
Is easy. And then like against JDG, like some of those early games were like a little close for a little bit.
That was a lot close.
Yeah,
we were winning some of the, wasn't one of the games we were up like 5K or something?
I don't know.
Where 60 the Tristana game got a bunch of kills over by enemy blue buff.
It's a delirious fever
in my
dream
head.
of 5
We were
a.m.
stomping that game.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. And then we lost, but it was definitely an exciting one. And I mean, the biggest glow up for sure was Licorice, and I don't know if he just kind of turns back into a pumpkin when we come back to LCS. That's kind of my big question, because even during their regular season run, we talked about like people had him 10th. I had him 10th. He was not good
During playoffs, though.
During playoffs, he was way better.
That was already homegrown glow.
He was glowing. Not as much as he did at MSI though, and so like this was his MSI performance individually. I think was the best I've seen him literally since 2018 Cloud9. Like that era. It's been a long time
Semifinals Worlds
since he has looked that good. So if he can play at that level, I think there's room for them to even go up, because I am fully bought in on mid jungle. I think that Gory and River are legit. They were already challenging for best mid jungle duo in the league, and Stixay and Huhi regionally have been solid. So like, can this team just be consistent? That's my biggest question. And also, are they super burned out? Because while you say a lot of the C9 guys are super grinders, when I didn't get that impression as much from all of
They're more like mental health focused.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like they talked a lot about that. Like Stixay and Licorice talked a lot about their focus on mental health and being able to like, stay even keel and all this. And even talking to an Arrow and some of the guys going into it, they did talk a lot about, hey, like we're trying to go into MSI and we're going to try our best, but we're also going to go into it with realistic expectations and try to, accommodate for burnout and try to really be smart about this. So if this team does take a bunch of time off at the start, it might be another 9-9 split where they're starting real slow.
No, I don't believe it.
I have them third. I am believing, but I really hope we get Licorice at that same level, because if we do, that's amazing. Like that's such a resurgence.
I think it will be, just because like it felt like during that run before, it was like the team hadn't unlocked its final form. It's like this RPG thing. You haven't unlocked having like a top laner with carry skills currently. And so he was just on Jack or Renekton and like was an afterthought, it felt like, in a lot of their wins. And like his job was to just like go even as best he could. And it felt like in playoffs, they realized how to integrate him into their drafts, into their game plans on red side, how to actually like enable him. And like, that's not something you're just going to like lose now that you've kind of gotten it. Like, of course,
I think it was individual performances as well. Like solo killing 369, he solo killed Fudge. He had
but
really
that's
good laning performances.
But like, he wasn't like outside Cassante, none of the champions that he started doing that stuff on, he was even playing in the start of the regular. Like, it didn't feel like he had like the ankle weights taken off. And like, I think he did get a lot better individually too. And
he
like,
made so many mistakes on the Renekton games.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to go around solo killing everyone in the league. But like, I think there was more team stuff around like what his role was on the team that got shed later on.
They also were very, very adamant and outspoken and mentioned multiple times how big of an influence playing with confidence is for both the players that we had on the dive, Licorice and Stixay, as well as the rest of the team. And I feel like that does have such a snowbally factor. And I think coming off of an international performance like that, where everybody is singing Licorice's praises, he's getting so much positivity thrown his way. That's going to be a lot of confidence, and getting solo kills against the best teams in the world is, I think, going to go a long way. And he should be able to continue to ride it coming back to North America as well as the rest of the team.
He's going to get an ego.
Do you worry about the inverse then for 6A?
No, because I think people oftentimes they'll have this issue when we have an international event, either MSI or Worlds, especially MSI, and their favorite team, their top team, gets bodied there. They were playing versus the literal best teams in the world, the number ones from every other region. It's not like, oh, we went to play China or we went to play Korea. You went to play China and Korea number 1 and 2, okay? And oh yeah, you got bodied by, number 1 or number 2 that are probably gonna win Worlds. It's a completely different level. So I think the team will be fine with Stixay. I think Stixay probably did take a hit, obviously, as far as he's not going to be happy with some of his plays, because some of his plays were unforced errors, let's be honest. And there were, quite a lot of moments. So I'm not going to say that's not going to be a factor. I think they'll be okay. That definitely could be an issue, though.
Before we jump on to the next one, I totally forgot to mention Blabber's MSI performance, which is making me think about it. Yeah, Blabber, I feel like deserves a lot of credit for how he played internationally. That's one thing that, obviously, as a diehard LCS guy who has watched every game that this guy has played in his entire LCS career in LCS, I have always been bought in that Blabber is the truth. Like, this guy is legit. He is really, really good. And it almost started to feel a little bit like the Bjergsen thing, where because they weren't getting anything done internationally, or people kind of have that stigma around them internationally, they never thought that they deserved it. And I felt like Bjergsen, towards his later performances, did perform well internationally, individually, even if his team didn't work out. And I thought Blabber had those kind of moments here. I thought he had some really strong early games, even in a lot of the losses. That was nice to see him be able to kind of like shake, I feel like, the Crabber memes and all that crap from previous MSIs. But should we jump on NRG?
Let's do it.
So NRG is the CLG roster, but they obviously did make some changes. They got FBI and Ignar now in the bot lane.
In the power rankings that I sent to our producer, I still put the CLG tag.
I had to type. I had to undo
Salute.
it.
I didn't even.
Rest in peace.
I didn't even notice that until now. It didn't even cross my mind.
I wrote CLG, then backspace, and wrote NRG.
Well, originally I had heard that they were going to have to keep the CLG name or something.
Yeah,
for the split,
same.
So I was still thinking we were going to get the farewell tour. So it's a little bit sad that they didn't really kind of get that farewell tour.
No.
So
this
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Band-Aids off.
They're dead.
3 of the same. The top side of the map's the same. Ignar and FBI joining, like you said. On paper, I think it could be an upgrade.
I think it's an upgrade.
I think Luger had some really good games, but he was really disconnected from the team. And like multiple games, he is like just doing a totally
split push stuff.
Yeah, the split push stuff, just totally his own thing, and it cost him really big in playoffs. And I think, we had Palafox on the analyst desk one time, and he's like circling, being like, look at our AD carry as I find the fattest engaged with a Silas stole a Maokai ultimate.
Oh, yeah, when he was going to Raptors or something like that.
He went to auto a ward as his team engages in River for a dragon fight. He's autoing a ward at Raptor Pit. And so, like, yeah, like, I think Luger's good, but just, like, didn't see the same way. And they had some struggles in lane. They were kind of inconsistent. I don't have a ton of faith in Ignar. I think FBI was decent last split. So I think this is a team that fought very hard to get 4th place. They got it. They looked okay in playoffs. They have very scrappy games for C9, who's the best team in the league. Like, I have confidence in this team's play. I think the big question for me is how the org change affects them mentally. Because if they can play at the level they played in spring, I think they're the 4th place team.
Because CLG was good vibes only.
Yeah, CLG was big vibes. This is not big vibes. This is very, very small bad vibes, maybe.
I mean, it's obviously really stressful when your org goes away all of a sudden. There's all these changes.
Support staff changes around.
Support staff, everyone's getting axed, right? That is going to be super stressful. So, hopefully NRG can create a good environment for the players and that they can be set up for success. FBI, I don't feel like has had one of those super flashy splits where everyone's talking about him in quite a while. But I will say, quietly, like, he's always really good. He always does his job. Even though it's not necessarily as flashy as some of the other guys, and I don't think he's he's hitting those high highs like a Berserker or like a Prince or anything. He still led the league in DPM. He still did a massive amount of damage. He still didn't die a lot. He CS'd well. He kind of checks all the boxes for like, oh, what do you need from a good AD carry? Well, he farms a lot, does damage, doesn't really die. Cool, FBI's your guy, right? I do think he significantly outperformed what Luger did in last split. So I do think you can look at that as an upgrade on paper. That being said, FBI like is not going to be laning with Vulcan, right? Like,
are you going to say Ignar's not the same?
I am. So it's, you do have to wonder like how will that adjustment go, right? Like, will they work well together? Ignar has always been known more as like the roaming guy and stuff, and it doesn't feel like that is really the meta coming into 1310 because it's a lot about enchanters and kind of new items.
You're about to see some fat Janna flanks.
Yeah, some fat Janna flanks. Exactly.
Insects with the ult.
Flash insect on Janna. This is gonna be nice. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he gels with the new team because obviously the CLG top side does work really well together. They seem like they're all homies. Palafox, Dokla, and Contracts all seem to get along really well and be working really well. So I have faith in this team. We have them as our aggregate in 4th.
Yeah. I think Mark put them 4. Me and you both put them 5. And the ones the team that, or go ahead.
I was gonna say Twitter hated them. They're 6.4.
Yeah, that's the biggest discrepancy between Twitter and us.
Yeah.
Well, the whole list. You're right. Yeah.
Mark had them 4, but me and you both had 100 Thieves
above
them. Swap these two, and this deserves a caveat because the mid lane replacement for Bjergsen, I think someday we all agree is a good pickup, great pickup for 100 Thieves. But the mid laner Quid, there are rumors that his visa situation is not sorted out, so he might not even be here. And they might have to do some backup stuff or shuffling around or something, which would suck and would also influence their ranking. But this is assuming they have their actual team here. I would also say, even just looking at this individual player, guess what? We just got back from MSI with this thing announced, and we were fully focused on the international tournament. I have not gone back and watched some Quid tape yet. So I'm basing off of my interview with Chronicler, who casts Challenger League Korea, about this player, and he seemed decently excited for him to the extent that he was on a middle of the pack team.
He was on a bottom team.
In the most recent split, they placed 8th.
Yeah.
In the split before that, in last year, at the end of the year,
but that was with Pace.
They were 5th. He had different teammates, yes, but he placed 5th. And Chronicler also said that this player was not a super standout player in either of those iterations. I mean, you can also let's also say he was Gen G Academy, so that he's on the same organization as Chovy. If we want to start drawing,
and Gen G Academy does have a pretty good history of like players coming up and doing well. I know Chronicler did say that also.
I also want to point out Berserker. He was on the 10th place Korea Challenger team.
But everyone knew he was cracked.
He turned out pretty well.
He was one of the best. He was one of the best prospects in there. It was the debate if he was like the best AD carry.
If he should already be on T1.
Yeah.
So it is a different situation. I know that from talking to Chronicler, I talked to some other LCKCL guys, and I also talked to 100 Thieves. Talked to them a bit, and so I know that Chronicler basically says like the way it works in LCKCL, like in the Challengers League, is that if you are a top couple position in your prospect, like you already have LCK offers. So generally those players will not be even considering going somewhere else unless they actually actively want to live somewhere else. And so he was saying, with Berserker, it was a situation of like Berserker, no, he actually just wanted to live in America. And so that was a big reason why Cloud9 could even get him, because he did have those LCK offers. The kind of top couple prospects, my impression is right now in Challengers in mid lane, were not players who wanted to, move to America. They were players who were waiting for LCK spots and knew that there are going to be LCK spots for them. So they were not necessarily available, but the kind of like next tier or whatever was the Quids, guys who are like more in the middle as far as that, but potentially have a really big upside. And that's, something that was available. I also know that from talking to 100 Thieves, they were saying that they considered over 10 candidates. They tried out all these different guys, and that the thing that they were rating most highly was team fighting. and that was like the biggest thing that they were really weighing is how well can they team fight. And they thought that Quid, out of those 10 plus people they tried, was by far the best team fighter. They really liked how aggressive he was. They really liked, the fact that he was able to like create action for his team and kind of seemingly make plays out of nowhere, that he didn't need to be set up for everything. Those were some of the things that they were really, really, excited about. Mechanically, they think he's incredible. And, that there's going to be some learnings that he has to do as far as, like game IQ or whatever you want to call it. But like, you want a guy with hands, you want a guy that can be aggressive. You want those things if you're going to be trying to like mold this player into something really, really special. Also, they believe that he's going to be LCS ready right out the box. And they think that they're going to be a top 4 team, and they're already, and their goal is Worlds, right? So it's like, they are not looking at this as like, oh, maybe in a couple of years he could be pretty good.
Yeah.
They already think that he's going to be a top 5, potentially a top 3 guy, like right out the box. So they have a lot of faith in him, which, will that come true or not? We'll have to see.
Whoa.
But clearly they're pretty bought in on this, not as just something that could be, long-term.
We spent so much time talking about Quid. What about the rest of the freaking team, guys? They're not good. I'm telling you, like, they were almost out of playoffs. They had
Mark has 100 Thieves as 7th, by the way.
I have them as 7th. Everyone else has them unanimously 4th. I'm like, we watched the same team for the vast majority of the year. They were not going to make playoffs until they just stuck tenacity on Tank's weak side and played one
They have
style.
Sunday now, though.
To me, that was.
I know, but hold on. Let me finish. You guys popped off for a Quid for like an hour. It doesn't matter because, like, yeah, you got an upgrade on top side a little bit with Someday, but I know you're not a huge Someday fan yourself. Like, it's not this monstrous upgrade that's going to redefine the team that was struggling to even play. Like, playing around Someday's hard. No one's been able to do it yet effectively. Like, and hold on. They did it like one time with Closer and they won the split. Great. But, like, other than that, like, they just lost Bjergsen. Like, one of the main components of the whole reason this team was built this way is gone. And Quid's going to step in and, like, rally this team. Bro, I watched Vikla come in, and we were just talking about the struggles he had. Like, do you really think Quid's going to come in and just, like, dominate? And, like, maybe it happens. But, like, I'm looking at this team as a team that was borderline not playoffs worthy, made a run with literally one comp, and then busted out of playoffs immediately. Like, this is not a team that was actually good in spring. If it was an actually good team in spring that made these changes, sure. But the core of the people who are still there were not functioning well in spring.
I think that the biggest issues that they had in spring were in lack of coordination in a lot of the team fights. And a lot of them were with top laner getting picked off first or coming in late or going, jumping face first into the Rift Herald fight as Jax. I think that they are actually going to benefit from these changes, not only in the someday change, but yes, with the meta, like double lift to me proved he is worthy of the faith that people have in him as a player.
And also, that's the meta.
And I also,
that's what I say, yeah.
And I also think that they were actually suffering from having too many strong-minded, strong-willed veterans and did not have a cohesive in-game communication, an in-game team. They had so many issues that they were even talking about and like leaking hints and stuff during their interviews, like throwing a little bit of side shade. So
but like,
I think it actually will clear things up. Yes, maybe this is reaching for the stars, but I think it could actually be a good thing for this team.
It could be a good thing for this team, but like if you're having coordination issues and you bring in a rookie who has not played in the major league yet from another region, I don't know what Quid's English level is at.
Team fighting, though. Team fighting is where those issues were falling, and team fight spacing is...
Their early games were not good. What do you mean just team fighting? They had very poor early games. They just scaled to late on double lift Jinx with weak side top laner, and that was their entire strategy.
Because jungle meta sucked ass for Closer. Closer is still a good jungler. Will you at least give me that?
I'll give you that. Yeah,
Closer's a great jungler.
Double lift's a great AD carry.
So what are the individual problems then? Because it's like, to me, it's like we're saying this team is like 4th, right? Which I don't think that's like that crazy.
No.
Someday, to me, like you say, I don't really like Someday. I'm a bit of a Someday hater, but only in the way that I don't think that he has been the number one guy ever. Because to me, he was not like your main win condition. But I also don't think he really has to be on this. I've always thought he's a really good laner. I've always thought he's really solid. I just don't think he's that guy, right? Like he's not
You're not that guy, bud.
He's not
You're not that
guy.
guy, pal.
He's just not that guy, right?
He is.
He's not.
He is a
He's
guy.
not. He is a guy. Yes, he is a guy.
He's less problematic than Tenacity. I will grant this is an upgrade. I don't disagree with that, but I don't buy that Quid is an upgrade over Bjergsen unless it is like Bjergsen's like just had this ego that was holding the whole team's playstyle
Well,
back.
I'm not blaming ego, but like individually, aren't we saying the pieces are strong? If we think the jungle meta is going to be good for closer, which it feels like assassins and aggressive junglers are stronger. Closer, I have a lot of faith in individually. Somebody I actually do think is it's still a top 3, top 4 guy. The bot lane, you already said you think Doublelift is good. So
I said Doublelift was good.
You just said that.
Yeah, I know. I said I thought Doublelift was good, and then I didn't say anything about Busio because I love Busio.
So you think
But
Busio and
they were
Quid
not
are
a great
so bad
lane
that they're dragging this team down to 7th?
No, I don't think that they were a great lane. I don't think Quid's going to come in and dominate. I just watched Vikla come in and not dominate, and now it's like this guy who's not even the top academy prospect is going to come in and like redefine this team's playstyle, which they didn't even have in spring anyways. Like,
we are all very and admittedly blind on Quid. We just got back from MSI. We haven't watched the tapes.
We're all
so this is definitely throwing shots in the dark right now.
It's uneducated, but like I just like if this kid was going to come in and revolutionize what I think was a not very good team.
I don't think he has to revolutionize it.
Yeah, I just think he has to to me, Vikla's stuff is mental. It's not a play issue, right? Like Berserker didn't play in the LCK,
but do you guys think
came in and did
100
really
Thieves was
well
good
right
last
out the
split?
gate.
Do you think 100 Thieves was good last split?
I think they were about as good as the other teams. They finished in 3rd.
I do think they figured out how to be good towards playoffs.
Do you think Golden Guardians was good last split? Because they were terrible for most of the split, and then they went 3-2 against 100 Thieves. They barely beat them, and FlyQuest did the same thing.
And then they went to MSI and they did great. But like the way that they won their games during the 7-game win streak.
History.
No, it's not. The way they won their games in their 7-game win streak was not a single comp that no one banned for 8 games. Dude, Tenacity played 2 champions on that run. Gragas and Cyan.
Yeah, and he's gone from the team.
I know, but I'm saying they played literally just Jinx. They just played scaling basically. They played
And what was MSI? Aphelios and Jinx every single game.
Yeah, but people just banned
That's the meta.
But they 100 Thieves did not demonstrate over the course of the year like a capacity to play cohesively as a team, and I just don't think that's gonna happen this split. I think it's gonna be the same thing, and I just don't think they'll rip off an insane win streak.
I love the fire.
I mean, I like it too, but like I just think that you're almost like being hyperbolic in the way that you're saying like Quid has to be so amazing for them to get 4th. I don't think he does. I think they just have to like the changes in the meta favor them heavily because they were already playing this style. They basically were already playing MSI meta before it was meta. Like they were already
and they couldn't win it in NA playoffs. They lost 2 series in NA playoffs. Like I think here's what I'm saying. They were a 7th place team in spring. I think they're going to be a 7th place team in summer because
they got 3rd place.
No, I think they were a 7th place team. They ripped off. I'm saying my opinion of them was they were not as good as their record. Yeah. I don't think they should have made playoffs if things went to chalk. But Golden Guardians, you have to remember, busted out so freaking hard. They had a horrible end to the regular season, and I don't think that they were the 6th place team, Azael, just because they finished 6th. They end up going to MSI. I don't care what your regular season ranking was, in my opinion of you as a team. I think they were the 7th.
But I'm just saying 100 Thieves played them close in playoffs.
Yeah, I know, but then they lost.
Yeah.
So my opinion is this was what was effectively, in skill, a 7th place team in spring. They bring in Someday, which
you think they were worse than TSM?
No, TSM was
7th.
Yeah, they would have bumped them. Like someone else would have raised. Whoever was 7th, I think, should have been in playoffs. Someone
TSM.
else. Yeah, sure. TSM should have won a game.
I just do not agree that they were worse than TSM.
Yeah, maybe not.
TSM had a lot of problems.
They were a 6th place team. They were worse than every other team in playoffs, I'd say.
I think we should let him have his placement here and continue down the domino effect.
Here. Let me just finish because we keep interjecting. I think that they were a 6th, 7th place team last split. I think Someday was a mild upgrade, and I think Quid is a mild downgrade, and the team's issues that they had are going to be the same or worse.
Yeah.
I don't think that's that hot of a take.
I guess I just think that there's a likelihood that Busio and Doublelift are developing together as a duo. I already think that the meta changes favor them, and I do have more faith, I guess, in Closer and Someday than you do. But no, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting.
I definitely like the fire. I already, because I could look to the next evolution of the argument stemming from this argument. And I was trying to consider what of these other teams would I be willing to bump above 100 Thieves like Mark in order to get that positioning. And
the other teams have a lot of problems too.
I'll throw that out as like the olive branch is like everything outside top 3, top 4 feels like a bit of a crapshoot.
Yeah, because you have them at 7th, so you have.
Well, let's say I don't want to ping pong around too much.
We can go to EG.
So I say we stick to the actual order that we have here. because it gets right into EG, which this is one that I do think is controversial because EG has so much wrong, right, with this organization, and they just blew up. They didn't have money for anybody except to keep Jojo.
Yep.
But Jojo went to Korea. He's turbo grinding over there. 3 weeks. I always forget what rank it was.
Six.
It's six. There we go. 6th place challenger in Korea
60-something
in 3 weeks. It's actually insane grind by him. So my faith in Jojo just shot right back up, and I know that people are going to bring up all of the mistakes and the poor performances that he had, and that's fine. I
think he's
I recognize that, and
sure.
those are fine criticisms that you can throw at me, but I'm sticking to my North American talent.
To be clear, you have them at 7th, so you have them the lowest.
Yeah, can I finish with my spiel though?
Yeah, I was just like, wait, you're talking so positive and you have the lowest.
I'm talking about this team that has exploded. Now, okay, I got completely disoriented here. Okay, anyways, Jojo, yeah. And then the roster is completely reconstructed around Jojo with extremely low income. What's the actual roster?
It's Revenge, Armeo, Jojo, Unforgiven, and Ayla.
And this is why it's so controversial. And that my whole spiel is on it being controversial, not being positive. The positive part is just Jojo going over there and grinding. These players all have histories. And so while they are very low cost players, I actually see a lot of angles in which you can argue for the quality. I will say my expectations are very low for this team, as evidenced by my placement of that team. But I'm very curious to hear your arguments because I've seen them online, and I've actually talked to a couple people behind the scene that think this is a value team, so to speak.
I think the arguments that you see are the ones that I'm just like buying into a little bit more because you just pick your battles. Like I don't buy the 100 Thieves thing. I buy this one a little bit more. I think it's a paper that or a team that when it came together on paper, I was like, wait a minute, this is actually like low-key kind of decent. Like I think Revenge is like a decent role player. And I think he can have pop-off potential. I think Armeo's slept on generally in the academy scene. He's been one of the best junglers for a long time.
That to me is one of the most pivotal ones that I actually latched onto because I heard a lot of really good things from Cloud9 about him when he was just coaching for a very short amount of time for this team. He was actually coaching for them before they even announced him, but I'm actually excited to see him come back on stage.
Team Liquid had loved their time with him, from what I understand too. Generally, people are pretty high. Like the people who do work with Armeo are pretty high on him. Jojo, you already did the hype for. Unforgiven was like should not be an academy. Should not have been down there. He was the first team All-Pro bot laner in summer last year for the LEC. Like maybe there's an argument about what happened down with that, but like he was still legitimately very good AD carry. You are potentially getting a top half of the league AD carry immediately onto your team to combo with Jojo.
And I was hearing rumors of him taking an LCS spot already last split.
Yeah, people wanted Unforgiven.
Yeah.
Ayla, oh boy, not a good look last split. And I'm clutching onto whatever situation that he stepped into.
That one's tenuous.
Yeah, that's rough to predict good things out of him. And I'm just hoping that it was like the mid-split sub-in situation with Prince and it was difficult for him and this will be easier. And I think obviously I don't think Armeo's an upgrade from Inspired. I'm not going to make that case.
That's not close, yeah.
But the team for EG was they were talented beyond belief. They had the best early game in the league last year. It was just they could not play the game the same way. And this team is just 5th. I'm not saying that they're making worlds. I just think that I could see this team getting on the same page. They have legitimate carry firepower. You can have 2 top half of the league carries in Jojo and Unforgiven and role players around them. I can see how this team works.
Yeah. I mean, so to be clear, Mark has him 5th, I have him 6th, Kobe has him 7th, and the Twitter aggregate was 6th. So all very similar, all around the same kind of region. I mean, I just, from everyone I've talked to, I'm pretty excited about Unforgiven and how he's going to play. I do believe that he could be, better than just a top half. He could potentially be, a top couple 80 carry. I don't think he's going to be a Prince or a Berserker, but I think he could legitimately, if he's playing as well as...
Is that all off talking to people, or is that, did you watch any games?
I watched some of their games, but admittedly, I don't watch a tremendous amount of NACL because usually when I'm watching extra, I'm watching other leagues. But talking to people, people thought he was really good in scrims. People have told me, like all the NACL casters and stuff, really thought this guy should already be in the LCS last split. So, I do have a lot of faith in him there. I think Jojo is going to have a really good split as well. From a lot of the stuff I heard, people felt like it was distractions outside of the game. That was a big reason that Jojo wasn't doing as well last split. And I think that has been a bit of a wake-up call, that he can't just do whatever and actually succeed, right? He came in, won right away. I think he's had a bit of a tough split now, and I think he's probably a lot more focused. Like, clearly he wanted to go to Korea. He wanted to grind solo queue. He wants to be able to play at that top level. He's a very competitive guy who wants to be winning championships. So, I think he's going to have a good split. I believe in the carries. Revenge is something that I feel like pretty much all of the top laners talk really positively about. When we had any top laner on the desk, they're one of those guys that they're like, remember we had
he's like the underrated. He's
exactly
the new sneaky. Everyone's like, oh, this guy's like underrated.
But like every top laner thinks that he's good, right? And I remember when we had the Golden Guardians episode and they're talking about, okay, well, what other players are kind of just like jailed on a bad team and should be doing well, and they were mentioning Revenge. Fudge has called out Revenge. I feel like a lot of people have been talking about him being really good individually. I don't have a lot of faith in Azael. I feel like he's been around on the scene for a really long time. I feel like we kind of know his level, and I feel like it is towards the upper part of Academy and the bottom part of LCS, and I do expect him to be around there. What I will say is that it's better to have a bottom tier jungler who plays tanks and plays that supportive style, which I very much think he can do, than it is to have someone who's trying to be more of the carry style. And if we think a lot of the meta is going to be supportive items and that sort of stuff, I do think Azael could slot in there and play for his carries pretty heavily. And I think it should be a solid team. I mean, Ayla, to me, if Ayla plays how he played on FlyQuest, then I think maybe this team is going to be a lot worse than I think. But I just can't believe that the Ayla we saw playing on FlyQuest is how good this guy is after watching him in Academy for a couple of years and seeing him even slot in on stage with TL and do really well across so many different metrics. I feel like it had to be the pressure of coming into a team that was already succeeding. So I hope that with him there, hopefully there's no visa problems again for him. Hopefully he's there from day one and they can really work together. And I could see this being a solid team. But again, I have them sixth. I think that they're like, a playoffs team and probably not worlds bound or anything like that. Should we move on to TL, who we have 676 across the board, and Twitter has them fifth, so they have them a little bit higher.
Yeah, the reason I had TL over Evil Geniuses is because this team stuck together. They didn't have to blow up. They're not going to have to put together all of these pieces that, even if you evaluate individually, how players play together is actually one of the biggest factors in successes for these teams. So I dropped EG pretty decently down, and I really heard so many good things about Team Liquid when they were practicing over in Europe at MSI. And so I also know, and I'm very wary that I did the same thing, and we all did the same thing with Team Liquid last split, where we bought into we are going to be the turbo grinding team. We're going to put in so much effort, and they had success in scrims behind the scenes. All the other teams admitted that to us, and yet they couldn't bring it together on stage. And so I'm doing it to a lesser degree this time because I only have them 6.
Yeah.
But I still gave them that bump up over some of these other teams. And with the added, sense of security that they are sticking together, and they themselves also said they are going to be a summer team and they're looking towards that improvement and cohesiveness. I'm pretty sure if we asked them right now, would say that they're behind their own timeline that they had set for themselves in spring, but they at least will still be able to build off those building blocks that were there in scrims. And every other team says they were a beast in scrims, even if we didn't see that and fans don't see that on stage. So that's why I had them a little bit.
Yeah, they finished 8th last split. 6 isn't like a crazy jump or 6th, 7th for most of us. It's pretty reasonable to think that a team with 2 rookies gets slightly better when they stay together. They got tons of early game leads. They were one of the 2 notoriously horrible late game teams. Them and 100 Thieves, it felt
and
like
mid game kind of, to be honest.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I mean, they fell off the wheels very quick. Everything out of the lane was wait. But like I don't want to flame Marin too hard, but like he never coached before, and he just like got the head coach job, and I heard not great things about his coaching. So
he's out.
Yeah, he's out. That was the one change they made, was their head coach, who like somehow got that job and then seemingly was not.
To be
very
fair,
good.
that's how most coaches start coaching. Right?
Well, they're like, I'm an ex-player, but like some of them do work through up to it.
Yep.
You know, like Nuke Duck didn't instantly become head coach, and he's out now too. But like, or taken down. But like he was an assistant coach. The head coach got fired. He gets put in. You know, like that's a pretty normal career path. Whereas like Marlon was just like, you're in there, buddy. Yeah. When you also have Rainover, who was like a coach.
I mean, TL has done that a lot though, right?
Yeah.
Jat was a first time coach. Spawn for Academy was first time coach. Or maybe he coached some in.
He coached. He was like GM coach.
He was GM
for
so
order.
maybe it's like blurring the lines a little bit.
He was analyst.
Yeah. Well, he had also coached teams in.
Yeah. I mean, like I think. You know, you can take your shot on someone. I just don't think it worked there. And so, like, if a team is having mid to late game issues and your head coach is everyone agreeing, like, not great, that like that seems like an area that you can shore up a little bit.
That could maybe improve them.
Yeah. So, like, again, we're not saying monstrous leaps.
Yeah. I mean, my concern for TL, and again, the reason I put them below EG is mostly just like lack of faith in carries. You know, I don't think that Jan and Harry were that strong. And honestly, like, Piotrek was a huge disappointment. Piotrek really did nothing. It's like no one even talks about the fact that there's like this guy came straight off a world championship.
Because a lot of people were saying that when he got signed. People were like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. I pulled my punches when
this is the riskiest world champ signing that.
Yeah, but it's just so I didn't think he was gonna be at the top of the league, but I thought he was gonna do a little bit more than he did. It didn't. It's like I can't remember a good Piotrek game. Can either of you? Like I'm sure he had a couple.
He definitely had
games.
some good early games.
He had some good early games, and I'm sure he had some good games. But just the fact that there's not one that like is standing out in our minds.
When you say if the first thing I think of is the Elise flank, where he just stood and waited for them to come Baron as they charged him and killed his team.
Yeah.
Those are the plays I think of from him this split.
And I know he was getting drawn Kindred bans, and people were telling me, oh yeah, his Kindred's really good in scrims, but like he was getting a lot of Kindred bans all through the split. But like that was the only thing people would tell me when they asked about him. Like, oh yeah, his Kindred though, his Kindred's good. Too bad that's banned every game against them. I hope that their strategy works though, because I know like Kobe said, they were scrimming a lot of teams in Europe. You know, we talked to some of the European teams who had mostly positive things to say. I still heard a lot of negative things about Jan. People were not impressed with Jan from what I had heard in the European scrims, but that they were impressed with all the other guys and overall thought they were a really strong team. And it was funny because one of the, like, I'm not gonna reveal who, but one of the coaches I was talking to in Europe that was screaming against them, they're like, oh yeah, they're solid. Like I was surprised. I was like, you know, surprised they didn't maybe make it to MSI or something. I was like, bro, they didn't even make playoffs. They're like, what? Like,
that's how good NA is. Okay, we got deep.
Yeah, our bottom team.
Europe is so lucky they didn't bump into us in the bracket stage.
True.
Their egos would be shattered after C9 and Golden Guardians.
Who said they were going to stomp the European teams?
I
was hearing good things about our scrims against EU.
This was my hot take when people were like, "Oh, it's such a bad draw by Odo for like Europe and stuff." I'm like, "You guys were lucky. You could have been on the same side as us and gotten trashed."
Yeah.
Like you guys dodged NA. Like
exactly.
You get to lose to the West or the Eastern teams and then protect your ego that you're still the third best region. You're not.
Frauds.
Fraudulent.
But anyway. I mean, TL, I do hope for them because they are working really hard. They're boot camped in Europe during all of MSI. They're scrimming teams. They are still those solo queue grind gods. And obviously, the hours you're putting in are not going to give immediate results. But you would hope that by now, if this is going to work, we should see some progress, right? And hopefully, coming into summer split, they're going to have a hot start. I think if they don't, I'm really not bought into the fact that all these extra hours are doing anything for them.
All right, Dignitas and Immortals, our aggregate is actually tied 8.6 each. But let's see, we'll use the Twitter as the tiebreaker.
We won't because it's not listed that way. So Dignitas, we're going to talk about them first.
We're talking about Dig first for fun. So Dig, I had them the lowest at 10th. I was one of the ones dragging them down. I think there's like things you can be excited about. Like Tomo helped
You're
make the team look more. Rich, the Heroes of the Storm. We were joking about that. Yeah, he's
the faker of HOTS.
Oh, we had to cut so much HOTS talk.
We were talking about HOTS and Blizzard.
The point is, Rich has been playing League of Legends, even though HOTS is the thing that he's always referred to as the faker of HOTS. He's been playing League for.
He's bounced
since
around
2019.
Yeah, he's bounced around LPL and LCK a little bit. So he'll be fine. I think he'll be an upgrade for Armut, and I think Tomo was an upgrade. So like this team should be better.
Diamond's in as well. So the full roster is Rich, Santorin, Jensen, Tomo, and Diamond.
Yeah. And like again, you see Jensen, you see Santorin, you're like, this team has to be better than
That's what we
place.
said last time.
And that's what we said last time. And like, I think this team will pick up more wins. I don't think they'll be 3-15, but like, I just don't trust
Spawn
this.
was so bad.
Spawn was very bad.
When they put Tomo in, it started looking like the game started looking.
They were way closer.
A lot of them were winnable,
Yeah.
and some of them they won. They actually won some games.
Yeah.
It's for me, this is like purely a mental ranking.
Uh-huh.
Like, I just haven't been impressed from Diggs org. I've heard like behind the scenes, it is just like feels like wasteland there. You know, there's just like no support.
Oh my god.
Like they're just like this giant facility that's just like empty or something. You know, for like
They're all soulless. You look into their eyes.
No, I'm not saying the players. I'm saying just like it doesn't sound like a winning environment. If that makes sense, you know, like it doesn't sound like this is like this org that's backing these guys up, or like, and that's not a shot at the managers or whoever is like still working hard there. Obviously, it just sounds like.
Kind of is.
It's not a shot that like the people who are hired are probably working hard. It just doesn't sound like there's much there, from what I heard. Like, so like I wouldn't have. Would you have guessed this team was the worst team in the league, even if you knew Spawn was terrible last split? Like, you still probably wouldn't have put them 10th.
If I knew how terrible he was going to be, I actually would have. I thought he was the worst player in the LCS by a lot. Not just the worst AD. I thought he was like. He just was not an LCS level player.
I guess
and I feel bad saying that because I actually was pretty excited for him coming up. Him along with some of the other academy ADs, people were actually pretty excited about. But he was truly really bad.
I just believed in Jensen and Santorin more than you, I guess, because
Yeah.
I would even with that, I'm like, you just got to win. Like, he's just got to exist and you'll win some games, right? But they just didn't have it. Like Santorin would make the same ganks that I felt like I saw him make on Team Liquid. They would like get a kill and then they would be down 1,000 gold.
I mean, they would do something in early games, and then they couldn't win anything later because their AD was always a mile behind and dead.
Well, yeah, but like Armit was not playing well. Like maybe
No.
maybe the bot lane and top lane changes because those were the two clear weak points. Like save this team and they become good. And like, but I just it feels like more of a systemic problem for me. From what I heard, you know, like that. Like I just don't think you make a slight upgrade in some positions and it's gonna get much better.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to say, right? Like I do think that Tomo is going to be a pretty big upgrade from what we saw from Lot. And as you said, they did get some wins. Arma did not have a good split. I don't really know what to expect from Rich. I'm going to be honest. I'm not expecting a tremendous amount, but we do have them kind of in that same kind of bracket. You have them 10th. I do have a couple teams below him. Kobe and I had him at 8th.
So Rich has played with a lot of very good players when he was bouncing around LCK and LPL. You know, he played with Karsa and Rookie, PP God, Doctem, Peanut, Kellen. Like he's got a lot of really good teammates in the past. His most recent split, the most recent split in the LPL, they placed 13th. And that team doesn't have a lot of other star power on it either. And, you know, similar to the other situations here, coming off of MSI, I haven't, gone to look at videos of some of these new players either. So I'm purely basing off of this stuff. But I feel like Arma was really struggling over here. So I think any change, is going to be positive change for Dignitas. So I'm hopeful that we do get to see more out of why people put faith in Santorin and Jensen.
Yeah.
Because there were some games where, the Azir game for Jensen, obviously everyone's referencing that one. I was like,
tried so hard.
We even memed it. We made replays of like showing the same, Jensen had to make 6 game-winning plays to win the actual game for Dig and all this stuff. It was kind of funny. But like there were so many things that were wrong with Dignitas last split. And good luck this split.
Good luck.
Good luck. I hope I'm wrong. I like a lot of the guys there.
But Immortals.
So Immortals, I had them 8th. You guys had them 9th.
Let me say, the roster is Solo, Kenby, Bolulu, Tactical, and Treats. So Solo and Treats are the new additions, with Bolulu obviously having taken over for Blaze Olive towards the end of last split.
And similar to, at least in my opinion, Tomo coming in, it felt like Bolulu brought a new energy and helped revitalize that team.
Some Vel'Koz energy.
Yeah.
I like that.
Vel'Koz. His Zoe was clean. Like he has his like little pool of champions and he seems like a leader. Like he has like, I don't know, sitting and talking with him, he just like seemed very bright and like,
he's got some charisma.
So here's what I'm getting.
No, I mean like he brings like leadership skills. Like he's someone who like I could see like there's a reason he was so successful in the TCL. Like I always liked watching him internationally too. Like I just believe in Bolulu a little bit. And I like Blaze Olive too, but like it felt like he was really struggling mentally, just like with all the pressure that was on that team. Yeah. And I like Solo. I think generally his teams overperform expectations.
He's solid.
I like Treats coming in. So like I think these are equal moves or upgrades, and I think Balulu was better than a Blaze Olive. So I just think this team will do slightly better than Spring.
I know the big concern when I talk to people about Balulu is just like that he doesn't have a champion pool. It's that like people are like, yeah, Zoe and Vel'Koz are good.
Ban them.
And then nothing else, right? And if you have a small champion pool like that, kind of like you were talking about with the patch Kobe, sometimes you're just unlucky and your champions aren't that good. If Zoe or Vel'Koz are ever not that good, then I think that is potentially a problem for them, because I think beyond that, his champion pool does, at least from the people I've talked to, they feel that it really goes down in quality in scrims and whatnot. I was really pleased with the games he showed on stage, though, and if people don't feel that you can ban out mid lane, then hey, you can keep playing your stuff and keep doing well at it, because they were way more competitive when he actually brought those out. And I do agree that like I think Solo's going to be really stable. Whether or not he's going to be like a big carry threat, I don't think so. I think Revenge was potentially more of a carry threat.
There's a lack of firepower on this team a little bit.
That is the big concern, is that it's like who's going to get you across the line. Kenvi, I think a lot of people were excited about as this carry jungler. Hasn't really panned out that way. Tactical.
Just slam his Kindred, dude. They the one game he played Kindred looked good.
The only games they won,
Graves.
he was playing carries. Yep.
And then they're like, all right, bye.
Yeah, there was the self-denial Kindred ult on the smite.
Yeah,
as well.
That's unfortunate.
That was sad.
Yeah. What else can you say?
Yeah.
He just needs some more reps on stage.
And we heard the explanation behind it too, with the with the animation and everything, and the it turning gold.
But tactical obviously we know can carry games, but he's not consistent is always the problem. It's always gonna be the knock on tactical. So that's why I have them down towards the bottom. Is like I have them 9th. I just don't know who is going to consistently get them across the line as far as carrying their games. Who is the guy you're playing through every single game to climb up the standings? I don't see it. That's why I have them 9th.
Yeah, I was similar. I also had them 9th. I was worrying about specifically getting target banned with this team. I feel like this has really high value. So unless the meta is something with super power picks that necessitate it, I feel like you can take some chances pretty easily with the target bans here.
All right, so TSM is 9.6 aggregate from us. To be fair, Twitter had them a little bit higher. They had them, if it was off of Twitter, they would have been 8th. We have them
because a lot of people put them first. On Twitter.
Yeah,
our producer said. So.
Yeah, there was definitely a number of people that put TSM first, which obviously balance things out.
I put them 9th.
I feel like people at this point are probably like, you're feeling some type of way about TSM with them leaving. So you're either diehard TSM and you're like ride or die TSM, I believe in them, number 1 baby, or you're screw these guys, number 10.
And kind of like we said at the top, for me it was just so hard because of the lack of resources for this team being provided to it. I see them as the consummate underdog, low resources, like they're having to scrap together and do everything themselves, and I'm like, oh man, good luck. And I'm here for the ride. I love Wild Turtle. Jason is a good friend. I love that Hanser is back. It's kind of cool that for our last hurrah of TSM, we're getting some of the old guard playing again. It would be cool if we got even more of them.
What's Odd one up to?
Sven Skaren is literally floating around.
Yeah, he always has his like looking for teams.
So I was like, oh, maybe tack some more on, and he actually has been playing well. They sent him over to Australia for some like all-star event or something.
Yeah.
And he like bodied a bunch of he won some games over there, so he's still got an option. Okay. Anyways, TSM, it's going to be really a struggle because everything that's going on, and they know it's their last split. So
the roster is Hanser, Boogie, Ruby, Wild Turtle, and Chime. TSM was,
and Phoenix as sub.
TSM was already not that good last split, and I think they downgraded in multiple roles. Solo, I think, is definitely stronger than Hanser. I think that Maple was actually, one of their big win conditions. One of the reasons that they were even competitive
and Boogie
in a lot of their games, him and Boogie. And you've replaced him with Ruby, who, admittedly, I don't watch a ton of Heretics because they were pretty bad.
Because it's Heretics.
They didn't make groups in spring. They did make groups in winter, but then immediately got knocked out. So they didn't go very far either split, and he was not very good on Heretics when I was watching them. I also like talked to some of the LEC guys. I've talked to some other people. I've watched some of his games. He never really impressed me. He never really seemed to impress anyone. Like, this is a bottom tier LEC guy that does feel like, just being realistic, TSM obviously are trying to save money in their last split. They're looking for people who are going to be willing to play for minimum. From my understanding, Ruby didn't have a team, basically. Heretics were going to replace him, and this was a spot he could find a team for minimum salary.
So the positive sides for me is I think Turtle was an upgrade over Neo when he came in. Yep. Turtle had some exciting games. That Caitlyn game was awesome. I think Revan coming in as the coach, like Chowie obviously sounds like a bit of a miracle worker, and everyone was saying his praises a good amount on that last team. But I think Revan was also very good for Cloud9 before, and like while you can make the case that the org is not like, going crazy on spending or anything like that, I think for Revan, he's now handed the keys to a team where he was assistant coach before. It's his chance to kind of like step up and.
I just wonder if he'll have all the support staff and stuff that you need, right? Because
I don't think
it's gonna be tough.
I think if I could put myself inside his mind though, for why you would take this job, it's like a chance to prove yourself going forward. Like, maybe he goes with TSM wherever they go if he does a good enough job. I don't know, but like I think for him it's like a contract year, the way that people talk about that in like traditional sports. I think for him it's this chance to like really show some stuff if you don't have these expectations. And because this team doesn't have any expectations, I expect they'll actually be like a relatively okay environment. I mean, maybe if they're just chain losing scrims and all that stuff, it's hard not to be depressed, but like it's such a weird situation knowing that your org is leaving. And so there's no like pressure from your management, because that's something that like I can say that every team probably feels is like these, like if you do poorly, there's like this stress breathing down your neck, like we can't sell sponsors, we can't do this, what are you guys doing, blah, blah, we're going to lose a job. And like that doesn't really exist for TSM. So like in some sense maybe that can help be like a burden removal, despite knowing you're not going to be a great team.
I mean, I hope they do well. Like I wish them luck. I think it's a tough situation. It's hard to know. Like you're going to go one of two ways. Either you're going to feel like, we're like chilling, there's no pressure, it helps you play well. Or you're like, well, the team's done anyway, so why should I try?
Yeah, I'm not going to practice. I'm just going to
not practice. Just collect a paycheck one last time.
Yeah, it can go either way. I'm bright siding for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to know, right? And I definitely wish Revan the best, and all the players the best. Hopefully that they can really perform. I do know, to say something positive about Ruby, he's basically a control mage guy. And he did have some standout games. I know that like his Casio was one champion that people were kind of looking at as one of his stronger champions. So potentially he could, have some good games here, have a good better split here. Who knows? We have seen other players kind of like in the same boat, I think, come over and sometimes overperform expectations. Like I think Blue got a lot of hate, but I actually think Blue did pretty well over here. I think he did better than people expected. I think like Aka and Blue and Ruby are kind of like in the same boat as far as like players that came over without like a lot of expectation from them, and coming over. And we'll see if he can kind of make a name for himself here, because obviously these players, you talk about a contract year for the coach, but I also think for a lot of these players, this is your opportunity to try to.
Chime's not going to just like into his career.
Yeah, this is your opportunity to try to set yourself up for another team afterwards. I think most people looking at this are gonna be like, okay, well, Chime definitely, people are still pretty positive on him, and he's newer to the scene, so he's gonna have a future. I think for Turtle or Haunter, if you want to stay in the scene, you have to have a really good split here because they've been around forever. And I think for Ruby, with that kind of like negative baggage that's following him and the negative opinion a lot of people have, this is your chance to have an audition to get a pro spot, because I don't think with TSM leaving that they would keep a lot of these players if they don't perform well.
Time to style on them.
Yep.
Lock in whatever.
There you go. Go random.
I mean, preseason patch is a great time to try and pop off. So,
all right.
See. I think
that'll do it. That'll do it for this episode of Dive. This was our longest episode ever, as we kind of knew it was going to be, to be honest, because there's so much stuff to talk about. We're like 2 hours in.
Did we break 2 hours? How much longer do we have to? We did break 2 hours.
We're 2 hours in.
I was going to say, if we're like a minute off 2 hours, I will just talk about something else to get us over 2 hours. Yeah. I want that on YouTube to say over 2 hours. We did it, though.
We did it. All right. That'll wrap it up for us for now. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm. And continue sending us your questions for this split. You can use the hashtag TheDiveLOL on Twitter. That's mostly where we get our questions. Even if you're tweeting one of us, use the hashtag, because that's what the producers will search if they're looking for questions. LCS Summer Split begins Thursday, June the 1st. It's Golden Guardians versus Cloud9. It's the championship rematch. Check out the finals rematch at 2 p.m. We'll see you there.
Also, if you tweet us a question, attach a picture. Our producer loves pictures, and it's good for the algorithm.